To live in the Marvelverse is to either sink or swim. Well, what would happen if someone decided to create his own path? These are the adventures of Benjamin Blake, the fastest man alive. This MC can be very anti-hero and heroish. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Omni-sensei here with, what if I was reborn in Marvel as the Flash? The fastest man alive. Part 1. If you enjoy this type of content, please speed punch the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Remember to check out the original story linked in the description. Let's get into the rise of Marvel's Scarlet Speedster without further ado. Fastest man alive, a new life. All I could remember of that fateful day was my death. I didn't know what I had for breakfast, not even what I had for lunch. All I can remember of that fateful day was being hit by that car. Even now, in my new life, I blamed myself for not seeing the car heading my way. I lived my life right, and I don't party like the rest of the people my age. I didn't go around sleeping with every woman I met. I was a good man, so why did I have to die? I could never figure it out, and this made me angry. I refused to live a simple life. I refused to accept what fate had in store for me. I reject it all. And I knew just where to start. I had read so many of these stories, and yet I knew with the infinite nature that is the multiverse the possibility of its existence was high. I never expected myself to die and become a reincarnate. This is a chance I refuse to let go. This is the story of Benjamin Blake, the fastest man alive. I woke up in an entirely different world. Sigh, you wouldn't and couldn't understand how that felt. I mean, everything was different and gone, and you knew this, yet it all felt the same in its weird way. That cute girl down with the haul, the video games, the excellent food, your friends? That's all gone. So I did the only thing I could do. I opened my mouth and screamed, yet that wasn't what came out. What came out was one of the loudest wailing cries I had ever heard. It scared the lights out of me. I jolted so hard from it looking around. That's when I noticed my hands. It was me. I was just a little babe. I didn't just die and get a new body, I was starting all over from the beginning of everything. And yes, that was when I had enough with my head tossed back. I just let it all out and wailed. Oh, look at him go. Strong lungs you got there, little fella, stated a blurry form of a man from my position in whose arms I was in. Look at him go. Did you see that? He has your mother's eyes. My little man is going to be so handsome when he gets older, stated the lady whose arms I was now in. 16 years later. Midtown High, Benjamin Blake. After my meltdown at my birth, I chose to grow up and do something with my life. It's not like I can go back. I was already dead, and my soul was in a new body. I was born Benjamin Anthony Blake, a fresh 7-pound baby with chubby little arms and legs. A fact my mother has never let me live down to this day. A too loving, if not a slightly overbearing mother. One Judith Blake, married to my grumpy old man, Adrian Blake, the super detective as he likes to call himself at home. While staring out the window, I had to contemplate my life. I am confident of being in the Marvel Universe. I just don't know which reality I was in. Currently I'm hoping it's one I know, cause let's be honest, I only read the good stuff. Planet Hulk, Civil War, and the Infinity War with some other smaller issues in between. So far I'm certain Spider-Man hasn't shown up yet since I keep an eye out for him in the Daily Bugle, and there hasn't been anything about him. I know that's going to change since JJ hates him for no reason. Also, Spidey hasn't shown up yet, cause one Peter Parker is one small skinny kid in class sitting right next to me. I need to figure out what I am going to do, and soon. There is one thing I am sure of, and that's the city is going to go to crap fast. I knew what I wanted to do, yet I only had parts of a plan to get there. I had plans for doing the hero thing my way. With plans to bring Pete, the kid genius, along with me, keep him as my Captain America/Tony Stark. I had to make sure I got my powers before he did. Turning to my face from the window, I look next to my desk and look at Peter as he tries and fails to hold a conversation with MJ. Man, I still don't get what he sees in her. If the opportunity happens, I'll help him hook up with the Black Cat. Pete, just leave her be, man, I spoke out to him. I was just letting her know I was available after school to help her out. Like she asked since she missed it last time to hang out with Liz. Peter spoke up while giving me puppy dog eyes. Come on Pete, don't look at me like that. It's creepy, I'm a guy and you're a guy, so just don't, please. How about I look the other way when Flash decides to walk your way? I replied this, which snapped him out of it. That's not fair. You promised me that you would keep him off my back and I wouldn't tell anyone you were kissing Gwen Stacy behind the bleachers," whispered Peter as the teacher turned around to look in our direction. Man, haven't I kept my word?" I replied with mock hurt on my face. "Well, yeah, you have. Eddie and Flash actually both go the other way when you're around. What did you do to them before you got me out of my locker?" Peter asked me suspiciously with a raised eyebrow. "You know you're good at doing that eyebrow thing, but unfortunately it won't work on me. Remember, I am a detective kid. That's also dating a police captain's daughter who is also a genius in her own right with a photographic memory. So go take your detective game somewhere else." I quickly scoff at him with a playful shove. My detective game is on point, thank you very much. At least that's what my grades say," replied Peter as he laughed at his longtime friend. I'll keep in my mid-A average lane. I am trying not to stand out too much. No point in bringing people my way. No worries, I'll let you get all the grades and just beat up the bullies that come bother you," I replied to him while looking up at the bell with just 3 seconds on the clock. Ring. "All right, class, make sure you have chapters 6 and 8 finished for homework. That means you too," came the teacher's call as everyone stood up, rushing for the door in a who goes first frenzy. "Well, that's our cue, Pete. Let's go join our fellow hormonal teenage brethren within the confines of that hallway we call a jungle," I spoke up, shifting all my belongings to my backpack. Out in the hallways was just straight-up pandemonium. Some days like today, I realize quite vividly I am a teenager all over again regardless of how advanced my mind might be. There were hot girls in skimpy short skirts, with the big dumb jocks sniffing behind them. Don't get me wrong, I am not half bad myself, but I don't see the appeal of pumping iron and getting that large just because you're on a high school team. Standing at a crisp 5 feet 10 with caramel brown skin, rocking a low fade along the sides, add in my gray eyes and my lean fit athletic build, and yeah, I was a head-turner. I had no interest in any of the ladies around me. Yeah, I was what most of them called a fine-ass brother, but I had clues in on the path the future might take, and I already know who was going to come out of high school hot as can be, and I had somehow got my hands on one such lady. Or as my father likes to say, teenage hormones at its finest. I still don't understand how she ended up with you. Yeah, you're my son and you think you got game, but you don't have squat. That was right before my mom smacked him on the back of his head, to show that she heard him and his ramblings. Now that school was over, it was time to set my grand plan in motion. A month ago, I had offered to donate some blood to Gwen for her scientific project on genes and their sequences that make us who we are. When I had given my blood, I had also asked her to look for me to see if I also had the X gene. If this were present in my genes, then it would speed up my plans, and I knew what powers and abilities I was going to get from my uber list of nerd powers. Did I luck out getting her in my life, or what? Someday I'll have to share how I know all my information with her, but until then she is my awesome girlfriend. And here she comes, walking down the hall looking like a cute little Emma Stone with that blonde pixie cut. Pencil skirt with some checkered sweater. I didn't even know she brought one to school this morning. Wait for a second, isn't that the sweater I lost during winter break? How in the blue blazes did she get that? She looked at me, smiled with a raised eyebrow, and turned to Pete on my left. Pete, what ya doing? Any plans for the weekend?" asked Gwen while completely ignoring me, looming over her, as I was eyeing my lost sweater that just so happens to be in her possession. "Not much, I am supposed to be helping MJ with that chemistry homework. Then I'll probably keep on tinkering with the computer I was building. What about you? What is your plan for the 3-day weekend?" asked Peter, trying to stifle his laughter at my antics. "Well, I plan to help the big lug with a little project he keeps going on and on about how this will change everything forever," stated Gwen while leaning back onto my chest. Peter perked up hearing this. "Oh yeah, what project is this?" "Nothing much. I plan to prove that I know the key to access vast unlimited power that can change the cosmic balance as we know it, and it will all be in the hands of a teenage boy. And then afterward, a make-out session to end all sessions." I replied to him with a straight face after my evil laugh. "Yeah, I'll pass, thanks for the heads up about your evil plans to rule the world," Peter stated as he closed his locker. "Cheer up, buddy, we are about to have a 3-day weekend. Why so glum?" I asked as we walked down the hall to the school's exit. "Not too sure, just want something new, you know," replied Peter in a bored tone of voice. "Dude, we live in one of the most diverse cities known to man and you're bored, seriously?" I asked him back in an incredulous voice. "Stop messing with him, he just wants something new to happen in his life. We all believe that high school's a drag on anyone," stated Gwen as she glares at me. "Hold it in, Mama Bear, I'm just asking regular questions here. You know I'm trying to figure out his mood to help fix his mojo," I said while backing away. Geez, don't kill the guy just asking questions to help solve a problem. Don't worry about the big lug. I know you have your eyes on that redhead. Don't you blush, mister. These things take time. If it turns out she isn't the one for you, then that's okay. I am positive you will find someone. Okay, Peter, so cheer up, Gwen said to him in a cheerful tone. I turned off to the side and sighed in relief. All right, Peter, here is your bus. Have a good weekend. And don't do anything I wouldn't do, I said, looking at him holding my hand out for a fist bump. Yeah, I think I have that new GPU coming in the mail today. So once that's in, I'll start compiling a new code I was working on for looking for information on the web. Peter replied excitedly. Sounds like a plan, man. I replied, walking away from the bus stop with Gwen by my side. So are you going to tell me about this experiment you have been preparing for? Gwen asked me as we caught the 129 metro towards Hell's Kitchen docks. Turning around to look at her, I had to mull it over in my mind. How much to share, and what can I share? What if I was to tell you I might or might not have the key to extra-dimensional energy that's listed as one of the fundamentals of reality itself? But not just reality, it's a connective force through all of creation, the multiverse, space, and even time itself. It's a force that would allow anyone with access to transcend life and death itself, because once one is connected to it, you are more than just what you are. Some of your parts are just rendered a moot point because this force is part of existence itself, and when you gain access to it, your fundamental being also becomes part of existence itself, also just by proxy. I hum as I finish my little tirade about the speed force. See, this is the you that I like. Why can't you show this type of intelligence in school instead of that boring lazy face all the time? Gwen huffed at me in an exasperated manner. I couldn't help myself as I laughed at that. I'm talking about powers that can change reality itself, and she is worried about what face I show in school. Man, she is adorable. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's some heavy stuff. How can you be sure you know that it is what you believe it to be? Not one to knock you down, big lug, but I don't believe you're in any AP physics classes. Gwen replied while eyeing me. Well, to answer your question, I discovered the key to it a while back, but I wasn't so sure my body would be able to handle all that power. Do you remember when I asked you to check if I have the X gene in my genome sequence? I asked Gwen while we relaxed in the seats of the bus as it chugged along the NYC streets to our destination. Okay, I'll bite. What's the reason you couldn't use this so-called key unless you knew you had the X gene? After you asked me about it, I had to do my own little research. Did you know Professor Charles Xavier wrote a theory on human evolution and that we might have new sapient human types walking among us? Gwen asked while looking out the side windows. Yeah, I know of the professor. I actually have a hope of meeting him after this is all complete, I replied. Oh, don't be sly, mister, you didn't answer my original question. Gwen replied as she turned around as she smiled at me. Okay, the big deal about the X gene is that it's mutable on a far higher scale than our normal genes with no risk of cancer. Another big deal about the gene is that when it activates it will give the carrier powers, yet these powers come in a random power scale and set. The key will allow me access to the dimensional force, and the X gene will keep it from killing me in the process. I hope that it's going to jumpstart my X gene, allowing me to gain powers, and since my gene would be in a blank state, I'll be able to soak it all up. I replied with a grin of my own. Her face fell instantly. This is dangerous, and you want my help with it? I flinched. Yeah, maybe I should have kept that part out of it. Well, no more dangerous than walking down the street in NYC, I replied, trying to calm her down. No, Ben, that and this is different, and you know it. Gwen huffed at me. Well, Gwen, I gotta try it, and if this works it's gonna be like wow, and if it doesn't you can just huff at me with your usual I told you so's, I replied with a pleading tone in my voice. This was my key to the big life, the path to be immortalized in history. Hell, I can't be sure I can even do this without her. Yeah, I am putting the parts of the plan together, but she is the biochem genius that's gonna save my ass if I do something stupid. I guess I gotta go with a bribe. Come on, Gwen, if this works that means I'll be able to figure out a way to get you powers. Also, sharing is caring, right? I asked as softly as I could while putting my arms around her waist and bringing her closer to me with a pout on my face. All she could do was let out a little huff at me. And I knew I piqued her interest even if she wouldn't admit it. You should know if I figured this out, then I would be able to help find you some powers also, right? Maybe some flight, or something flashy, or how about some strength? But I don't think my pretty genius is into getting her hands dirty. How about some telekinesis? Make the beauty and brains a powerhouse no one can mess with. How would you like that? I said to her in her ear. Seeing a smirk played across her lips, and yeah, I know she is in my corner for the crazy that's about to go down. We got off at our stop about 3 blocks down and 2 blocks across where we needed to be, but that was okay. That's how I wanted it anyway because I had all of the hobos in my corner. I have been visiting out here since my mom allowed me to get on the bus alone. One of the memories I had before I died besides all my nerd and geek info of the MCU and the DC universe was a movie called John Wick. It showed me the power one can have if they had the hobos and bums behind them. So at a very early age, I came out here on my own to feed them. There was Alan, an old-school Vietnam vet, Terry a millionaire on very tough times, since his wife took everything and then framed him for the rest, that's what he says, but who knows with that one. And then there's Phil and a dozen others that like to hang around my warehouse of choice. They all waved at me as I walked past the warehouse, so far nothing seems wrong. I wonder if the items I ordered got here yet. After I had gotten the positive results that I had the X gene, I began my preparations. Since I have been saving up my allowance from way back, I had been using it to feed some of the homeless people around my warehouse. I had saved up a very nice pretty penny. With that I had ordered a box of about 300 packs of electrolyte saline solution with an 4 drip and had the guys find a gurney frame for me and I replaced the bed on it. I obtained the fluids my body was going to need. I had the X gene to bond with the Speed Force, and I had people to look over me while I communed with existence itself. I was getting nervous, and my adrenaline was flowing because I knew that this was going to change everything. It had to work because if it didn't I was going to lose my crap. Besides the spider bites, and let's be honest, I don't even know if that's going to work with my genetic makeup. This is the easiest power to receive. You gotta plunge your hands inside the heart of a dragon. That, and I have no way to make it to the Kunlun, so that's out. Save Dr. Stearns and get the Hulk formula. Yeah, that's not gonna work because I don't have the gamma gene to survive that exposure. How am I going to get behind and rescue the man with all the military around? So yeah, that's a no-go. And there is no way I can get my hands on Extremis virus for bodily improvements because it would overheat me and make a man go boom real quick, and I have no clue how to get to AIM HQ. So now here I am in a semi-abandoned warehouse surrounded by the hobos that I adopted and fed, and they helped me by keeping this place clean from time to time. Okay guys, move the bed over to that wall away from the skylight, and get the fire extinguishers ready. There is a good chance I'll cook before I recover if this works. I yelled out giving orders to my people. Alan, do you mind looking after Gwen for me? She's the doc and you're her second in command, please, and thanks. Alrighty, then it's showtime. I spoke, hyping myself up for what comes next. I kissed Gwen and watched as she ran over to the rest of the group. Alright, I got this. Yeah, I totally got this. Then I spoke the words that every DC nerd and geek would know because how significant the equation is, because for all those in the know it's the key to the Speed Force. 4 total access, and this is going to change my life forever. 3x2, 9yz, 4a, everything changed as my body felt as if something was slotted into my very being. I was frozen on the spot, everything was silent, but not just silent, nothing was moving, not even the particles in the air. Then a bolt of lightning came crashing down, smacking me right in the chest over my heart, and damn did it feel like a jolt of the best espresso. Around 100 million volts of nothing but pure energy from the Speed Force just for me. My very existence became painful. I didn't know where the pain ended, and I started. My entire nerves felt like they were on fire, but held on. I refuse to go out like this after going this far. I refuse for my second chance to just end this way. I refuse it, and I wouldn't accept anything other than success. Then everything went white. Hurry, get those fire extinguishers in there. I guess this is gonna work out for the kid after all, Alan stated while walking over to take a look at his little friend that's just far too stubborn for his own good. If this all goes sideways, what's he gonna tell the kid's parents? I didn't believe him when he said that he had a key. I thought it was just another of his little stories to get out of doing homework. Gwen whispered from her spot as she watched Ben being picked up from the ground he was laying on after being struck by lightning. How was he struck by lightning? The sky was clear. No static was in the air. How did it come to this? Gwen wondered, and just how much more does he hide behind his goofy grin of his? X-Mansion, A man in a silver wheelchair suddenly exclaimed in pain. His charcoal suit ruffled as he ripped the metallic helm from his head, putting his bald head on display for all to see. Is everything all right, Professor? Asked the lady who stood behind the control panel. Her shoulder-length white hair sways with each movement of her hips. Ororo, dear. Cerebro just sensed a very powerful new mutant manifesting his powers. It was just a moment, but I am certain that this individual is an Omega-class mutant, or possibly beyond. And that mutant is here in New York. They might be scared or worse, in danger right now. They probably won't have any control over their powers, and that could result in disaster. Indeed, Ororo, inform Logan. When the signature shows up again, we will go and locate this mutant. I am hopeful he or she is still alive. Ororo nodded to the professor's words, leaving to go update Logan on the situation. Another powerful mutant, and one that could be Omega class or beyond, was as rare as they came. If they ever did. Benjamin Blake, I didn't know where I was, but everything felt so familiar. It looked like a representation of the city. Are these my memories? I asked out loud. Then I felt it, a surge of energy so damn powerful, my mind felt like it was going to be ripped in half. The lighting and its power came in waves and colors. Reds, blacks, greens, and blues, all manner of lightning came and forced their way into my body. All with one purpose, to fill me with power, yet all that power was also ripping me apart. I refused to just die. I came this far. I used everything I had. I refused to just die because my body can't handle it all. With my refusal to die came my anger roaring to life. Then I grabbed the bolts, and then reality twisted. I could see everything inside, and then reality morphed into any and all shapes that I wanted. The power was so intoxicating, but this is not what I wanted. I was in a mindscape, not the outside. All this power had me trapped, and it was trying to have its way with me. And I refused it. This was summoned to do my bidding, not the other way around. With green and black in one hand, with red and blue in the other. I forced everything within my being. This was my mindscape. No one had more power than me in my own mind. I was the alpha and the omega here, and no shitty lighting bolt was going to rule me. I forced it all into my core, and my X gene came roaring to life, and at that moment I knew I was going to win. Yet this was a fight that was not going to be over anytime soon. Phantom pain started to assault my senses. But I held on. I would not lose this fight today. And as I fought and held on, red and gold electricity arcs came forth from my body and my mind. It was working. My body was being remade on a molecular level to allow the speed force to coexist within my cells. My muscles, my tendons, and my bones were all being rebuilt to use said powers. Just like that, all that pain, all that power died down, and I finally felt at peace. When I woke up, I was on the gurney facing the skylight. Ugh, did anyone get the plates of the car that ran me over? I groaned out for anyone to hear me. I heard shuffling over on my right side as I sat up. Next thing I know, I was being embraced by Gwen, who had tears in her eyes. Come on now, Gwen, I told you I was only going to be out for a little bit, didn't I? I replied as she started to squeeze me tighter. Yeah, well kid, you were out for 2 days while you were all glowy, and such, answered Alan while slamming a ham-sided hand onto my back. Oh well, that's too bad then. I thought I was going to be out for much longer, I stated as I patted Gwen on her back. Please don't do that again. Please don't do that again. The next time you do, I'll kill you for it, you big lug. Gwen cried out at me as she had gotten over her own little tiff. While they droned on and on in my ears about safety, I was juiced. I had just gotten dosed with 100 million volts of lightning. And I was raring to go. My mind was buzzing with new ideas and thoughts I never knew possible. Just looking at a far-off building, I knew the velocity to go if I wanted to run straight up its surface. So much power at my fingertips, and I could not wait just to cut loose and tell the world, I am here, bitches. No one can catch the fastest man alive. Yet the only thing in my way was an upset girlfriend named Gwen, and since this is the last day of our 3-day weekend, it's time to go out on a date. Man, I hope they have a cheesy comedy or a chick flick or anything to help get her off my case. But let's try something I always believed the Flash from the comics could do but never touched upon. I held up my hand and started to channel the speed force through it. At first, my hand started to buzz like I was after phasing, but that wasn't what I wanted. I was going for something of a finer quality, something that was going to be my ultimate cheat. My body was getting used to being connected to the speed force, but the force gave me an aura around my body. I was generating the aura on a subconscious level. This was one of the signs it was protecting me. Yet I had plans for this aura. My body was slowly healing, but if I was to channel the speed energy into my body, I should, in theory, speed up my healing. Since I was just a regular human a while ago, my superhuman durability hasn't kicked in yet, but with me channeling the energy, I am positive I can accelerate my healing by a factor of 5 for my normal cell, which will, in turn, keep them in peak efficiency, allowing me to avoid natural cellular atrophy. See, that's what I'm talking about. I just thought of a way to heal my body faster, and with perfect recall combined with my now enhanced mental process, and the answer came to me without me even trying. Let's take Gwen to the movies first chance I get. I am going running across the Brooklyn Bridge at full speed, then jump off the top. Let's go for a jog. So here I was, a real new Omega power leveled existence, and am stuck watching some random chick flick. Now don't get me wrong, I am okay with watching random movies, but when you have been told you're going to sit, wrap your arms around her, and watch with no complaints, that's when it becomes a hard task to suffer through. Man, I felt so alive, but here I was sitting and watching just because I decided to go full ultimate power. TCH. Superpowers my ass. A girlfriend still trumps you any day of the week. It wasn't all bad, and my mind had been thrumming with power the entire time since I woke up a few hours ago on the gurney. It was like all my shackles had been removed. My entire life I had been walking and living with blocks on my feet, riding bikes with square tires, and I didn't know the difference. Now though, my mind was one smooth aerodynamic hypervelocity spaceship moving with frictionless flight. My mind had no limits, and in turn, it gave my body no limits. Insights into things I thought mundane were awakening in my mind like never before. Information was being put together, catalyzed, and then stored away for when I needed them. Everything had a freshly painted coating, even as far back as my previous lifetime. So yes, while I sat through this ridiculous movie, I made plans, because one bald professor is going to visit me real soon and one Magneto. What I needed was to get them both on my side. The professor would be an easy sell. With me being aware of the DC Universe meta-human trope and better life treatment, which also included being aware of how keeping the mutant tag is going to ruin any meta's reputation, including mine, in any future I would build. Plans needed to be made to make improvements in the coming future, but first I needed to figure out a suit for myself, and I was currently on my 678 suit design. Crap, I also needed a hero name. And money, lots and lots of money. And while I was absent-mindedly watching the movie, coming up with plans within plans, it happened. Sharp snap. We ran out of popcorn, and I bit into my hand. God damn it, bastard, crap-sucking devil's asshole, screamed out of my lungs at my stupidity. In the blue blazes, is a man supposed to survive with crap like this happening to him? Forget taking on big bads, I can't even eat without halfway mutilating my own hands. Everyone turned to look at us, while Gwen just covered up her face to laugh at my expense. Hell, I bought 3 bags of popcorn, 1 medium just for her with 2 large just for myself and my blazing appetite. Since I became a new baby speedster, I knew my metabolism was spiked through the roof. My body had already burned through 200 bags of the electrolyte glucose/saline solution, just while I was knocked out unconscious communing with existence. Now I just ate through 2 bags of sizable extra buttered popcorn like it was running away from me. Gimme your hand, Gwen motioned to me while stifling her laughs. Not funny, Gwen, that hurt. How would you like it if I took a bite out of you? I replied to her mirth-filled features. I don't know if you could make time to take a bite out of me. You seemed pretty busy in your head a while ago, replied Gwen, leaning in to rub the top side of my hand. Oh, that perked me up. Being the male teenager I was, I had ignored my girlfriend over the last few days. Shit, she had to have been stressed out seeing the Speed Force strike me. Then she went from helping with my saline drip to watching me walk around like it was nothing. Now we are cuddled up in a movie, and I had given her next to no explanation. Yeah, she trusted me a lot, and damn, I was just here ignoring her with grand dreams and plans in my head. So I did what any guy would do, I pulled her in and placed a lip lock on her. Damn man, she just melted into my arms, and I could feel it as her muscles relaxed. It was like her whole being came back in sync. Wow. Is it going to be like this now whenever we kiss? Gwen asked me while I was trying to figure out how, where, and why did that happen. Honestly, I don't even know. These powers are new, and I plan to explore them. If you like, I can give you a small demonstration. That could be fun, she replied. So when we exited the theater, we took a look around while walking down the block. And when it was all clear, I picked her up Princess Carrie style, which caused her to yelp from the sudden move. Put me down, you big oaf, squealed Gwen into my ear, but I ignored her and took off running. That was when the Speed Force started to sing to me, and boy was it glorious. It was just begging to be unleashed and used. My cells were soaked in the Speed Force, and I was tied into it in a way that no one else could ever be. So I pulled deep on my budding well of power and pushed. The aura that was cloaking my body came alive like nothing I had ever seen before. Hell, I am sure I had never seen it before. I was confident I could do this. The Speed Force had intent linked with beliefs. So I had the intention not just to protect myself, but also Gwen. I had the utmost confidence I could stretch it to wrap her in my aura. I wanted Gwen to witness what's about to transpire. She had to see this, and she had to see so that she could understand. Then as my aura wrapped around her body, she slowly opened her eyes to the wonders. To understand what it's like to look at the world through the speed force. She was in my arms, and my aura was protecting her, so I ran. My destination was the top of the Brooklyn Bridge. I had planned to head there after dropping her off. Now I figured I might as well take her with me and have her experience what this is like. Within the blink of an eye, we were already halfway across Manhattan. We were moving so fast everything else was all stationary. I needed her to see this. Frozen cars, people, and sights. The blending of the neon signs as we zipped by them all on the path to the bridge. X-Mansion. The professor called his people into action. Ororo, Logan, let's go for a drive. That signature has made a reappearance. Now I am positive that mutants live within the city. Manhattan. Gwen was amazed. Ever since they were younger, she had always listened to Ben talking about powers and the beings that wielded them. She never believed her beloved, even when he said he would one day gain powers of his own. She always thought it was just his imagination. Who could believe something like that? It was just far too fanciful. Maybe that's what was wrong with her. She always thought in scientific proofs and her books. All he had was his will and crazy ideas about the universe. And here she was in his arms while he went speeding down the streets of their city. Was he taking her home now, or was he taking her back to the warehouse? She had no clue, but that was fine as she liked to be in his arms even when he was too dense to realize that fact. Then she saw the Brooklyn Bridge, and he was on a straight path directly for the bridge. That was when it happened. Benjamin Blake Gwen was in my arms looking around enjoying the view. The zone was here and I was in it. The speed force was singing, and boy was I going to use it. I looked over the edge of the railings of the Tulane Street. I was heading straight for the bridge when I had the most delightful idea ever. The East River was on my left with about a 200-foot drop onto the surface of the water. Taking a look at the water, then taking a look at the bridge, I set my find to my path. I was already going so fast everything was slowed down to a near stop from Gwen's and my perspective. This would mean the surface tension of the water was near concrete tough at the speeds I was moving, but that wouldn't be enough. I ran and looked till I spotted what I was waiting for. There was a wake wash right up onto the side of the wall looking just like a ramp, and I couldn't help myself. I saw the opportunity and went for it, pulling more speed force energy from my body. I ran up the gravel side of the railing and down the backside. I ran along the side of the wall, down the wake spray of water, and directly out across the East River straight for the bridge. "Wah!" screamed Gwen as I ran out onto the water. "This shouldn't be happening. This is impossible." I, her boyfriend, ran out onto water, actual water. She wanted to close her eyes. She had to close her eyes, but something kept her from doing just that. This new door that he opened for her was just too exhilarating. She wanted to do more, discover more. Hell, now she wanted her powers, and he did promise her a set of abilities. Now she had to plan on how to get them out of him sooner rather than later. Being so focused on my task, I failed to notice the side eye Gwen was giving me. That was fine because I was about to face my first tough challenge. The side of the Brooklyn Bridge standing point had to be the next level of slippery. I had an idea, but I had no clue if it was going to work. That didn't stop my brain from going into overdrive. Using the lighting from my body, I slammed my foot into the algae-covered brick and mortar on the bridge. If I had taken a moment to look closer, I would have noticed size 10 shoe print now perfectly stamped into the bricks. With one solid push, we rushed right onto the top of the Brooklyn Bridge to stand right next to the central light pole. I instinctively pulled back my manipulation over the speed force to pull back my aura of protection from Gwen. Man, the sight from up here was amazing. I was in a place anyone would give money to visit. Gwen was in my arms, silent as could be. When you spoke about figuring out a way to get up here, I always thought it was just one of your crazy quirks. You know, one of your moments of boredom and frustration, and just wanted to dream up something stupid. Just like your idea on superpowers. Yet that came true, and here we are on top of the Brooklyn Bridge of all things. I couldn't help but to smile back at her. What could I say? For once, I had nothing to say, so I wrapped Gwen in my arms and looked out over the East River. We stayed like that for an hour, just enjoying the sights. Then Gwen's phone rang. Captain Stacy was on the line, and that only meant one thing: our fun time was over. Gwen had to get home fast. Lucky for her, she knew someone that could get her across town in less time than it takes to brew a cup of coffee. After dropping Gwen off at home, I decided to put some rubber to pavement and blaze a trail across the city. First, though, I had to do a quick in and out of bodega on the corner of my block in Queens. I got myself 2 family-sized packs of M&M, a large water bottle, and a family-sized Snickers bar. Dropping a 20 on the counter, I then beat feet out across the lovely city of New York. The time was only 10 after 2 p.m. in the very early afternoon. And boy, oh boy, was I about to go full throttle. Queens brownstones. Logan turned down the 5th Street along West Avenue. Today he was driving everyone in a smooth royal blue classic Bentley. If anyone asked, he would never admit it, but he liked to drive this old girl. Logan had always kept up her maintenance, so it gave him a smoother ride with his metal bones. Man, how he hated riding in vehicles that did not ride smoothly. Hell, he hated flying just as much. It's just unnatural to be flying in the air trapped in a metal tube. If a man was meant to fly, he would have grown wings. So yeah, he liked driving the old girl. He checked the rearview mirror to see what the professor was up to, and yep, eyes closed trying to locate the new mutant power source he felt a few days ago. Charles Xavier opened his eyes as he marveled at what he had witnessed from the astral plane. The young mutant had a few locations he visited quite often. From what Charles could tell, he gained his powers over in the warehouse district. That was fresh, but the mind all that power belonged to frequently traveled to what appeared to be a high school, an apartment in the city, and what appears to be a house located just ideally between the school, warehouse, and the Manhattan apartments. So since that had the highest possibility of being the home of what now appears to be a young mutant, he decided to go there. Charles spoke up. Logan, I believe I have found the home of the young mutant. It seems he lives right between the school and some warehouses. His powers are activated in the warehouse district, but since the warehouse is located on the edge of Hell's Kitchen, it might take him a while to get home. SHA boom. Came the breaking of the sound barrier. Everyone took a moment to look around. Car alarms began to go off, and everyone in the vehicle looked around for the cause of such disturbance. Logan pulled the vehicle over to the side, turning in his seat to Aurora. Do we have a situation we should be aware of, Aurora? Logan asked, worried. I do not believe that this is weather-related. There is a higher chance this has been a situation of an illegal flight overhead, Aurora replied with a raised eyebrow. I would fly up there and take a look, but I think that the time has passed for checking on the situation. Wouldn't you agree? Logan just chuckled to himself and just pulled the car back into traffic. No point in arguing with her, and she was convinced she was right, and questioning her was just a fast way to get a bolt in the backside. Yeah, Logan knew better, and he wasn't going to bother. Back with Ben. Shit, I forgot to be aware of the shockwave that came with breaking the sound barrier. Yeah, indeed, I shouldn't have jumped the gun. That thought was out of my mind as soon as it came in. I was heading to open waters, and I was going to stretch my legs for all they were worth. Currently, I didn't have to be home until 3 p.m. It was now 2:30 in the afternoon. So all I had to do was run out to the Atlantic. Man, oh man, was I moving. I wished I had a speedometer to tell me about my speeds. Although my current thoughts laid in something else. First, I noticed the colors. 1 second it was yellow, the next it was red. Then it was split between my chest and feet, then changed to both hands. I was fascinated, so fascinated by the fact that I didn't notice that I was way past Long Island. I stopped looking at my arms just in time to notice the receding coastline. Yeah, I had the speed force and nothing was in my way. What I was seeing were different ranges within the electromagnetic spectrum, yet that wasn't what felt strange to me. What did feel strange was that I was able to tell and see the difference between what came from the ley line under the ocean. They went along the coast and far into open waters to other nations or secret islands most likely. What did strike me as strange was that I was able to see the ebb and flow of the Earth gravimetric waves. This I didn't know the Flash had. Hell, even the Flash stated that he ran so fast once he outran gravity itself. At the time I played it off as a joke of the Flash floating around. But now I knew that was complete bull. Something that the comics wanted us to believe. Speed vision is what I plan to call this, and now this raised a question. If I can see gravity waves, I must be able to interact with them. Yeah. Let's not. Currently I'm located in open waters, and that would screw me 6 ways from Sunday. Speaking of weird occurrences, I need to figure out how I am breathing going at such speed. My lungs should be mush by now, yet I am perfectly fine. Do I even need oxygen anymore? The speed force itself was maintaining my body's functions? Shield HQ. Sir, we have confirmed reports of an unidentified shockwave coming out of the New York City area. Called out a random agent with information for his boss. And do we have any confirmed sightings? One Samuel Bad Motherschmucker Jackson, the young, the fabulous, the bald one-eyed pirate himself, Nicholas James Fury, stood there in his long glorious trench coat, asked the same random agent. Fury stood at a good even 6 feet tall, a nice slim build for a man of his age. He carried himself with a casual gait, but anyone who knew him would tell you never trust that smooth walk of his. One moment it's all relaxed, then you blink, you're on the ground, and a size 11 custom-made baby alligator boot heading directly towards your face. The random agent answered quickly with a, "No sir, but we do have confirmed reports from local police, and an agent on the ground did a report on hearing the sonic boom. Alright, get in contact with weather and ATC. Also get me the last 24 hours of flights in and out of the area. One of these has to be our bogey," Fury commanded before turning back around. "Yes sir, right away sir," replied the random agent as he dashed away to get the information for his glorious boss. Other side of Queens. So tell me, Raven, this is the city that Tracker said he felt an Omega mutant presence? The last name, Blake, goes to Midtown High, correct? Magneto, also known as the Magneto Mutant, Visionary Extraordinaire, asked, striding forward within the concrete jungle, better known as New York City. Eric Lencher was better known to the public as Magneto. Magneto stood at a crisp 6 feet, even, thick, glorious silver hair. He wore a beautiful blue suit today. And he was here to pick up a fresh Omega-level mutant to become a member of his brotherhood. Raven Darkholm, better known as Mystique, the Ageless Beauty, the Master Spy, the Blue Femme Fatale or Raven, was currently in her businesswoman disguise. Short brunette hair, pencil skirt to match a work blazer that adequately hugged her shoulders combined with a shirt of light teal. Raven listened to her group leader as he strode forward without a care in the world. Raven decided to ignore most of what he was saying, putting more of her focus on the current target, Benjamin Anthony Blake. From what the tracker was able to glance from his vision, the kid somehow was able to figure out how to activate his X gene. He had to have failed some crazy experiment because she did not know of anyone who would knowingly try and become a mutant. He was just another kid, yet he had to live his life in hiding what he was instead of showing the world his magnificent gifts. This was why she was here helping Eric. She wasn't here for some grand ambition. Raven was here to help shelter the young. She wanted to perform a courtesy that she wished someone had shown her when she first awoke to her gifts. Somewhere out in the Atlantic, Benjamin, nothing beats having fun like a sudden jolt to the system. I had just jumped off a beautiful 20-foot-high wave out in the Atlantic when my phone decided it was going to give me a mild heart attack. Ring. 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 I didn't want to pick it up. Hell, how was I even getting service out here? Rationality aside, I knew if I didn't pick up, my dad was next. And man oh man, I didn't want the detective grilling right now. Ben, hey mom, the most exceptional person in my life, my light giver, the beauty with a bountiful heart filled with unconditional love for her great one and only son. Mom life giver, where are you? Ben, out on a jog. Why? Mom life giver, well I just called Peter, and he said you were with Gwen. So guess who I called next, Gwen. And guess what, you weren't with her at all. Now you're telling me you're out on a jog. Really? Ben, wait, why didn't you call me first? Mom life giver, I did, but it seems someone didn't want to pick up. So I did the next best thing. Ben had to move the phone from his ear to check the screen, and sure enough, it showed 8 missed calls. Now Ben knew how badly he messed up. And he freaked out. Shit. He looked up, spotted the signal from his phone, and hightailed it back in the direction of NYC. 'Cause he knew this was not going to end here. Ben, I can't believe I lost sight of the time, Mom. Promise you I'm on my way home now. Mom life giver, you have 10 minutes or you're going to be late. And I hope you at least picked up some more snacks for the cookout. Ben, Mom, you know you don't even have to ask. My stomach is a black hole, and I would have sacrificed a baby if we didn't have enough food. Mom life giver, why did you have to get your dad's sense of humor? Sigh. Bye. Text MSG end. I looked up and eased my beating heart. The city was rapidly approaching within my vision. I was aware that this wasn't time to slack off. I needed food and lots of it. Since I am heading home, I might as well do it in style. Focusing my might on the Speed Force, I pulled in the lightning and focused my will into forming a construct. There was no time to think about the placement and logistics of summoning full speed armor. Hell, I am not even sure how Barry created those, but I had clues and pieces to a puzzle. Today all I was aiming for was just a lightning bolt. For a brief moment, Mortal Kombat flashed through my mind, one character to be more specific. Raiden, the God of Thunder, and for that split second, I felt my lighting react to my thoughts. It quickly went away to form a lightning bolt upon my chest. I planned on going home in style. And this time, I wasn't going to mess up the sound barrier. I made it home just in time. I had 2 whole chickens, 3 slabs of beef ribeye, and last but not least, 5 pounds of ground beef for burgers. My house was located on one of the weirdest streets around. The block of houses was precisely 1 block over from the main roads on both ends. Then the location of the 6 homes that make up the light neighborhood was located in a semicircle. On the other side of such a half-circle was a 6-story apartment home. A strange location indeed, yet this was New York. Strange is a part of daily life. From my point of view, no one was outside. I did notice a very lovely blue old-school styled Bentley, which made me wonder whose wealthy relatives were visiting today. I definitely would have remembered a blue Bentley if I had seen one before. Bleeding off some speed back into the Speed Force, there was way too much wind. Anyone could figure out I came in with a blast of wind. The backyard of the Blakes. I can smell him, Charles. He just came out of nowhere. I can also smell the salt water. Sniff, sniff. I can also smell popcorn, butter, and a lot of meat. Logan spoke up as he looked around. What do you mean by salt water? Aurora asked, perking up at her seat. I would believe he would be able to answer your questions if you only ask, stated the professor from his location at one of the large picnic tables. I came running around the fence with all the extra meat for the barbecue already in motion. Just in time, you slowpoke. What happened? Get lost on your way home? I heard Gwen kicked you out a while ago, yelled my father Adrian Blake from across the back patio, with a sigh at my old man's loudness over the music of the party. I could only grumble under my breath. Then I had to offload all the food I brought with me to the party. That was when I noticed the arm that was helping me. When I looked up, there he was, James Bloody Howlett, better known as Logan, the badass savage. Wolverine was here in my backyard helping my dad with the grill. And damn, the man was ripped. Hell, I don't think there is a muscle on his body that hasn't been worked out. Logan was a short 5 feet, even with ham chops for hands. Shit, it was hard to keep myself from geeking out right then and there. My head snapped up quickly looking around, cause if Logan was here that means the X-Men were here. I looked up, down, left, and right, then he spotted the 2 sitting over on the side while Storm watched the kids play. Aurora Monroe stood up and looked back at me. Storm was breathtakingly beautiful, clean caramel mocha skin, flowing locks, with deep blue eyes that thrummed with the power of Mother Nature. This is the lady to one day ascends to godhood, one of the few individuals to have direct relations to actual divinity. Shit, she likes gardening. I have to make sure to remember that. Zen and gardening, that's my in. Just gotta wait. I have 4 months till I'm 17. I had to take my eyes off her to look at the man seated in his iconic silver chair. Professor Charles Xavier in the flesh. Damn, I was nervous. These are heroes made flesh standing right in front of me. The only thing saving me right now was that I had to finish with my dad before he forced me to go talk to the professor. So I decided to turn back around and finish putting away all the food. Yet, that was the chance Logan chose to speak up. So kid, tell me, did you hear that sonic boom today? Logan asked with a smug look on his features. No, I don't think I did. Guess I was in my head, mister? I asked, almost choked on my spit while looking at Wolverine. Oh yes, sorry, forgot to introduce you guys. This is Logan. He came with that professor over there from a school upstate. My father's voice appearing at the worst time possible. Before I had a chance to reply to my dad, the universe decided to hit me in the face with a curveball. In walked Magneto and Raven being led by my mother. I was positive that I was about to have a massive coronary hemorrhage. There was no way that I was born with such terrible luck. Snicked. And then I heard the music that sang to the ears of any nerd who knows that sound. I couldn't help myself. I had to see it. So within a nanosecond, I turned around and took a look at them. The Wolverine's blades. The weapons of unbreakable might. Holy crap, did I want to geek out right now. But like all things, reality had to set in. I realized my butt was in a family neighborhood cookout. A fight cannot and should not happen here. With that, my mind was made up. Taking 4 rapid steps, I stood in front of Logan. I clenched my butt cheeks as I dropped my speed. To anyone at the party looking in the front gate direction, new people were entering, but for those closer in the know, they had knowing smiles. Logan looked at me as I suddenly appeared in front of him. He released a grunt as we watched Magneto enter through the gates. Yeah, maybe here wasn't the place for a fight. Magneto came walking up next to my mother. Adrian, turn around. Let me introduce you. This is Dr. Eric Lenscher. He is also here to talk to Benjamin about a position at his school, my mother said as she did a quick introduction. Oh, and this is his assistant Raven Darkholm. Since this is going to turn into a big school talk, why don't you have a seat over there with the other teachers? Yes, that would be nice, as it has been a while since we last had a chat, was all Eric said as he walked in the direction of Charles Xavier. Logan followed them with his eyes and just grunted. Yeah, the kid knew about them all right, was all that was on Logan's mind as he went back to grilling. Man's gotta eat, even if he's gonna get a few people after. The fastest man alive, choose your path. Well, crap, now I was in a difficult situation. 1 second I was in Nerdvana, the next second the so-called heroes showed up, and then the villains alongside them. This was a moment that I was so not ready for. I had known that the professor was alive and kicking in this universe, and if the professor was alive, then that would mean that Magneto would be alive also. And now they both decided to just up and show up at my home. This was such a shitty situation. How in the hell will I be able to escape this now? This whole mutant gang war crap was not something I needed at the moment. The opportunity to celebrate having my powers didn't even last an entire day, and now they all showed up in my home. None of this will ever be conducive for my young teenage heart. This I could have easily bet money on. Just the looks on Logan's and Storm's faces said it all. This was not an encounter that they had prepared themselves for. It helped me out a lot that Magneto came without his icon helm and purple cape. Then Mystique was also in her own getup, which didn't draw too much attention. I did want to see her in all blue at least once though. I had to let that thought go because while Eric, aka Magneto, was busy talking up my parents and the professor, she had her eyes set squarely on me. This was a very odd first experience for me. I have never been stared at with such interest from anyone before, like she is trying to learn all of my secrets. Man, oh man, she did look amazing though. Mystique had come to my little barbecue in what must have been her professional office lady looking for a husband look. She was rocking a sheer stocking set wrapped around those fantastic long legs of hers. Wrapped around such amazing legs was a charcoal-colored pencil skirt with a jacket that pulled the whole outfit together with her teal top. And damn if that jacket didn't look like it was about to bust. If I was a betting man, my money would have been on that button failing it sometime during dinner, which would definitely drag my eyes her way. While I was drinking in the sight of the blue death goddess before me, I had to pick up my lower jaw and not act like some hormonal teenager about to choke on his saliva. What I knew, which very few others knew, was that this hot blue goddess before me was nude. She made all of her clothes with her transformation ability. Somehow she can use her skin to create a biomembrane layer which she can transform into clothes. I was not going to kink shame her at all, but in my heart of hearts, I so wanted to see her in that iconic white leather getup that she wears in the comics. Now that would be amazing, and I am positive that would cause my nerdy little heart to explode. Thankfully Logan grunted from his spot next to the grill, and I had a very sharp realization that I was staring at her like some creep. Great, now there are two badass goddess-level women here at the cookout, and now a man feels like he has to choose. Shit, I can't think like that. I am dating Gwen. A man can't have these thoughts about these ladies before me. Also, they are just as likely to kill me in excruciating ways. Storm as well. Storm was Mother Nature given form. You don't rock a name like Storm without all the powers of a planet at your command. Then there's Mystique, who can transform into anyone. Also, one of her primary roles in comics was spy work and infiltration. Piss her off, and one day you will never know how you died as she slipped a knife between your ribs. Hell, I am positive she is far more deadly than the infamous Black Widow. Would pay good money on a bet that she has some mad skills after living for 300 plus years. Which now, after some hindsight, has to be a given with this lady. How does a person survive that long? All those memories, all those life experiences. Just thinking about all that was blowing my mind. Yeah, it wasn't the time to worry about all that. Nope, this was the time of food and the time to ignore all the crazy that was about to explode in my face here at the cookout. Yep, that's exactly what I planned to do. Screw it all and let's act like the teenager that I am. With that thought in my mind, it was time to grab a plate full of burgers. Then act like I was ignoring the masses with my invulnerable defense of teenage angst and eavesdrop with the ongoing conversation. While my burgers were under attack by me due to today's hunger-inducing activities, I just so happened to hear the forbidden start of the conversation to end all conversations of my teenage life. So tell me, Professor, "What is it that you teach at this school of yours?" my mother asked from her position around the backyard table to the one known as Professor Charles Xavier. Then the bald man started like he wasn't giving away any kind of state secrets at all. "To be completely honest with you, we find and teach young mutants how to control their abilities. We also teach how to live in peaceful coexistence with the rest of the world or for others with mutations that are not of the normal variety. We teach self-acceptance," stated the professor with a kind smile on his face. Man, I can't lie, he almost had me with that. He looked so unassuming and helpful with his little statement. I knew this man was one of the significant master manipulators to have ever lived. Joining his side over Magneto's is going to be just as dangerous, with the only real upside is I'll be safe from the whole mutant terrorist label. I couldn't help but choke on my 7th burger when I heard that. Lo and behold, I gained everyone's attention. That was such a smooth move. All I could do was shrug back at them. With a raised eyebrow at me, my mother went back to grilling the professor. "And you think that my Benjamin is one of these mutants you find and teach?" my mother asked with such vivid skepticism evident in her voice. Well, yes, I do have to concur with Charles on this one. He is young, but even we felt his surge in power from our corner of the globe. That is also why I am here. When we heard of his awakening, we believed that it was of paramount importance that I come to see the young man myself. I am also here to offer the budding young man a partnership with my fellow mutants I am building," interjected Magneto from his place at the table. "Yes, I do believe he is a young mutant. And Benjamin is far more than any one of us thinks, aren't you, young man?" the professor asked me while also speaking to the general audience present at the table with a smile. Well, F me sideways with a horny cactus. He just outed my crap. Now what am I going to do? Those plans I had set to do this whole hero thing on the sly just went out the window. Shit, this was bound to happen since he showed up here. Now I guess it was time to either nut up or shut up. Well, Professor, and Dr. Eric, I don't want to be rude, but I started to say when I heard my dad say, "Oh no," from his position down the table. I just don't see myself associated with the title mutant. I would consider a small side acknowledgement of it since it's part of what makes up humans, but I can't use that title for myself. Then with all the joy gone from my face and voice, I let the truth of how I see it drop. To me, the term mutant and the N-word are such bullcrap and should not ever be socially accepted. Period. I spoke with such vitriol everyone had to lean back in their seats. My mother leaned closer to me to pat me on the back to apply a calming effect. Now if you were to approach me and say to me, "Kid, are you a metahuman?" I would have to reply with a perky, "Well, yeah." Since my powers are somewhat metaphysical in a sense, as it needs both my mind and my body. I'll stick with metahuman over mutant, as it sounds lots better, and less like some monster the news will undoubtedly use as a sticking point. I have to keep out the subconscious improvements I get out of the Speed Force. Everyone at the table looked at me stunned from my rant. "You have powers, since when?" my mom asked me before my dad could even open his mouth. All I could do was a shrug. I figured out the access key to a primordial cosmic force, then used it to activate my gene, unlocking my powers. I replied with a shrug. "And how did you discover you had the X-gene thingy?" my dad asked when he was finally able to interrupt. While I was half paying attention to my parents and answering their questions, I noticed the professor had an expectant look on his face. Magneto had frowned, figures. I was going against his whole Homo superior views. Storm had a hand on her chin while deep in thought like the professor. And Raven had a smile on her face looking at me like I was lunch. "Do you mind telling me how you came to such a conclusion?" Charles asked, finally speaking up. "Yes, how exactly did you come up with that, young man?" came Magneto's voice harshly from the other side, eyes hard. "Yeah, I guess being shown up by some punk-nosed kid would grate on one's nerves expressly if that one is telling you you're superior but is wrong. I'm not going to lie, I kind of liked the vibe from the professor. If I didn't know I would be immune from the effects of telepathic people, I would think he got to me somehow. Well, let's be honest, the term mutant is just horrible, and it's pure trash. The person that came up with that term to associate the next species of human beings should be dragged behind a barn, Farmer John style, and shot." I began earning a chuckle from Logan and Raven. Yes, a mutation is a variation in cells and genes. I'll give you that, but here's is the rub, if that is true. Then aren't all current humans mutants? Wouldn't all animals also be considered mutants? Right, 'cause you would need variation to be able to reproduce and keep on reproduction. Otherwise, that would lead us to genetic degradation, I replied out with a huff. Oh, and another reason I refuse to use such a title is rather simple. Take a look in the house on the DVD rack. Most movies of the horror trope consist of some form of mutation, and most of them are killer hillbilly types with deformities. Yeah, that isn't me. I can't just up and tell the X-Men. Because of that stupid title, everyone's going to make the X-Men enemy #1 for no reason. Even after the X-Men saved the world so many times, they still ended up hated just because they ran with the title, mutant. That needs to be killed now and in the grave before it gets out of hand. Logan's head snapped back as he let out a massive bark of laughter. Storm had a small smile on her face, and my insides went all flip-flop. Yay, I think she likes me. The professor also had a smile, and Raven had a glint of pondering on her face. Yeah, that's some way of seeing things there, kid, Logan commented as he chuckled into his beer. We use the term mutant as a means of owning what made us us. Using the term mutants means we recognize ourselves for what we are, and thus we own the slur. It allows us solidarity against those who would harm and use us, stated Magneto with his look of superiority. Yeah, well, like I said, poor choice. Now me, I like metahuman. It's the second question you all had, right? I asked the professor. With a nod to show me, I could continue with my chance to change the things to come. Now my reason for liking the term metahuman is quite simple really. My power base is metaphysical in a sense. Not only that, but living in my current time, I recognize it's your name that's going to make the world see you for what you are. That's why anyone with any knowledge of social networking dynamics would instantly tell you to use a name that pops, not a name that would associate you with any negative connotation. For instance, if I go out and tell the world I am a mutant, they would associate that with the term mutation, and the noose would run with that instantly. And can you tell me what mutation goes with as a negative connotation? I didn't even give them the chance to answer me, but I felt all fuzzy inside seeing their frowns cause they forgot such simple things thinking there, but is so damn superior. Well, for those that haven't put it together, mutation goes pretty well with cancer since it is a mutation in the cells that causes such a condition. Now I don't know about you, but I am pretty sure I'm no cancer. But that's what you will allow the noose to make of your name when you decide to use such an open-ended title for yourself. I told them all. With that one statement, everyone's eyes opened extremely wide at my views on the matter. Yeah, they just got served. No way was I about to be some mutant gopher dated by the media. I have read enough in the comics to know that this needed to be fixed now rather than to wait for later. How? How can you possibly know? Storm asked, finally speaking up in the conversation. That's easy, I replied to Storm, looking into her bright blue eyes. It's not anything big. Honestly, all you have to do is watch TV and see how social media plays out. We have horror movies of deformed mutants, which leads to any media associated with a mutant term to be viewed with disgust and distrust. Wait, I am missing something here. You have powers? Since when did you start having powers, Benjamin? Asked my dad after he finished thinking about what I just said. So with that, I stood up and generously demonstrated for everyone to see. I summoned the Speed Force with my will, allowing my body to blaze with it. Lightning arc around, but I kept them in check. I took one look at my parents, then took off around the house, deciding sooner rather than later to go much slower this time. 3 laps later I went back to my spot. So what are you, kid, a speedster or a light bulb? Logan asked with a chuckle. Well, to answer your question, I am a bit of both. I answered back to him as I went back to my seat. I took a glance over at Magneto and I watched a frown play across his face. Yeah, bitch, I am far more powerful, but I am not about to give away all my secrets. So tell me, young Mr. Blake, would you like to come and join the country I am building for our kind? Asked Magneto with raw intensity. Yeah, I knew what he was up to, but I don't plan to join his little band of evil Brotherhood mutant terrorists. Maybe I'll help them here and there, but I'm not about that life. Thanks, but no thanks, document, came my reply to the man. Are you sure, young man? Asked Magneto while leaning forward. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'll pass for now, I replied firmly. But yes, I had to leave the door open just in case. You never know when you gotta hide out. Magneto got up fast, turned to my mother, did a half bow, said his goodbye, then walked right out of the party. Yeah, I should have figured he would throw a bitch fit after he didn't get his way. Welp, that's a big F you, I guess. Raven, on the other hand, took her time with her goodbyes. She did handshakes with my parents, gave them contact cards, and then it was my turn. Ben, play this cool. say hi. Shake her hand and then keep it moving. So tell me, Ben, do you have any plans made for after high school? Raven asked me with a natural smile on her face. I. Ben people, was all that came out. Well, it is official, I am a born-again moron. How in the blue hell do I mess up an introduction like that? Screamed my nerdiest internal monologue. Okay, let's clear my throat and try this again. Cough. Cough. Now let's try this again James Bond style, went my inner voice. You have this, champ, and you have this. Oh, and ignore that smile on her face. Remember, she is one of the most dangerous women alive. Black Widow doesn't have crap on her, so don't mess this up. Good afternoon, Miss Darkholme, I stated with my best winning smile, hoping she didn't see my internal panic. That got an eye rise out of her. Wait, did she tell us her last name? Damn, I might as well rock this and hope she doesn't find me in a dark alley. Raven Aka Mystique POV with that. Out in the open, Raven raised one elegant eyebrow examining the young man before her. When she first came, she thought this was just another dead end. It is always lovely to welcome a new family member, but they are still too scared to admit what they are to the world. Or that they want to hide what they have become. Here is a young man that knows what he is, but accepts that fact. His views on it are far more suited to today's times than Eric's. It doesn't seem like he wants to build a country, but it does seem like he has a plan. Now that's something, isn't it? A young man that knows what he is all about in life and already had goals in mind. It also helps that he is easy on the eyes. Those are the eyes of a man with a plan for the future. Yes, it's great that I tagged along with Eric to come to see this new mutant. Know this young metahuman. Metahuman, even the new terminology is aimed at the new generation. It has been so many years since anyone has stroked my interest. What has it been, 30 years? 50 years? Maybe 100 years since a young man has brought out such interest in me? Now that she was so much closer to him, she could feel it. First, it was a little at the fringes of her limbs, but now that she was in contact with him with her fingertips, she was sure. He was brimming with extreme amounts of energy, nothing but raw power. It felt so endless, so vast and untapped, yet right there for her. No, this isn't right. Not at her fingertips, it's at his fingertips. His power was so vast she didn't even know if she could see the end of it. Now Raven made up her mind she had to see him unleashed, and then he would be hers. I see you also know that name. Tell me, what else do you know? She asked before letting go of my hand. Benjamin's POV, I dig you in blue more, came out of my face before I even knew what was happening. We shall see, and don't worry, I shall keep in touch, Raven replied as she turned around and headed out after Magneto. Hell, she even had a sly catwalk that looked like she was gliding across the floor. In and out of people just like flowing water. Shit, she is so going to kill me. Came out of my face hole again before I even had the chance to stop myself. That she will bub, I just hope you're ready for that fight. Came out of Logan, who just appeared at my right with a beer in his hands. I jumped to the high heavens. Holy crap, man. Don't do that, mess my life sideways. I breathed out. Logan just grunted at me with a smug smirk playing on the side of his lips. You might be a bit fast, kid, but you sure ain't aware of your surroundings, was all he said as he went back to join my folks at the table. Walking back over to the table, I took a seat closer to the legendary man himself. The father to all of the X-Men, and was also the father to so many young metahumans to come. I even knew a lot of what others didn't know. His total nonviolence was instilled into him by none other than revered the Martin Luther King Jr. as a young African-American growing up in America, now living life as a metahuman. Meeting this man is such a huge honor. Hell, I want to be on his side, yet I can't go the nonviolence route. I knew about all the danger that was coming my way now that he has shown up at my doorstep. It's like a start to something, and I don't know what it was, but I felt it oddly enough. I have never taken a life before, but I know I can never let the Purist or William Stryker escape. Not only them, but all those other meta-hunting groups out there. I had to figure out something soon. Yeah, I need to put all that aside. Must let the nerd in me rest. Otherwise, I won't make it through the rest of the day. This day has already been one hell of a day. So for now, let's take a deep breath and speak to the man that's been the father figure for so many. Hell, speaking of father figures, I can't wait to make it out into space. Note to self, make sure I make it in time for the Guardians of the Galaxy. I have to make it and see if that's Stan Lee, some cosmic guy. Wait, what if he is the cosmic guy now? Let's leave that for later. Well, hello, Mr. Blake. That's such a new view that you have," stated the professor while looking at me with a smile. "Please, Professor Mr. Blake is that older man over there hanging out with Logan. And also I shouldn't be rude. Good afternoon, Aurora." I replied to him while also looking towards Aurora. All she did was huff at me. Talk about rudeness. "Good afternoon yourself, Ben." I would also like to insist on the professor's question, stated Aurora while eyeing me. This caused me to chuckle. "Yeah, I am different, all right. Let's be honest, Professor, I have been a long-time fan of your work. The reason my views are different is just that I am younger. You have to understand, when you were making all your discoveries, most people were in Vietnam, or our country was going through the Cold War with the USSR. From the way you wrote your dissertation in college, I figured your view was already solidified. So I figured I would hit it from a different angle because it would need something fresh for the 21st century. I have always noticed your terminology was limited to what could be understood back then. Now for the other things that were rather simple. Reality meets science fiction more and more, so I knew you wouldn't have written so much on the human condition and its evolutionary path without proof. So I went for my evidence. That was when I found it on some random page that was at least 200 pages hidden behind some ads online. Some scientists from Korea were listing how the X gene was so self-contained, yet it was in a good 60% of the Korean population. See, that was a fresh drink of water in a desert. The X gene was the key I needed. I had my ideas, but no proof. My other obsession was the math behind the motion of the world. That was more of a stroke of luck, really, and that's a subject I can't reveal. So that you know, I was 8 at the time I discovered the X gene. Took me until I was 13 till I figured out its use. I knew this surprised the professor with the way his eyebrows went up. I believe you have left a lot out, have you not? Asked the professor, but I wasn't going to answer him no matter how kind he was. So I decided to give him something. I am a detective's son. I reserve the right not to set myself up and run into a trap. Can't get me for hacking if I don't confirm nor deny that agenda set before me. I answered back to the professor. This caused Charles to chuckle at me a little, while Aurora stared at me with an unblinking gaze. This didn't deter Aurora, man. This woman was determined. "Why did you want to become a meta-human?" Aurora asked, still giving me a look I couldn't place, but I had to put all that aside. I needed to win these people before me so I could have some breathing from this mess I am in. "Oh, that's easy. I wanted to change. You haven't met them yet, but my girlfriend is a next-level genetics genius, and my best buddy Peter is also a person with genius-level intellect. I was just an ordinary Ben Blake with dreams of grandeur. What I did have, though, was detective skills, and I kept looking and digging till I found my answer, and I went for it. Now here I am, and I refuse to apologize for what I did. I got here on pure merit and half-assed skills. So if you hate me for it, then that's too bad," was my reply to her, and of course this didn't go over well. Aurora scoffed at me, got up and went to join Logan by the grill with my parents. Yeah, talk about suck in the charms department. Now all I had was the bald old man to chat with, and he was not easy on the eye. "So tell me, Ben, would you like to attend my school for extraordinary individuals?" Asked the professor with what I am beginning to think is his signature look. He had that smile again, and I couldn't figure out why. At this point, I was starting to believe he thinks it's disarming or something along that line. Too bad for him, I knew so much more than I was supposed to, which means options were available to me. Now I gotta play this up to maximum effect. "I would love to, Professor, but I can't because I'm already going to school here," I said with as much gloom as I could muster into my voice. This caused the professor to scrunch up his brows. "Well, that's unfortunate, really. Is there no way I can change your mind about this?" Asked the professor, and that was how I knew I had him. Yeah, I felt like a scumbag for taking advantage of him, but he is getting an uber-powerful beyond omega meta-human on his side. So them's the breaks, and he has to deal. I played myself, perking up with a smile. I started with my pitch on the situation. "Well, if it's cool for me to come by on weekends and hang out with the rest, I would like to do that," I asked, but honestly. I wasn't asking, it was the only thing that would be accepted, and I think he realized that because he decided to agree. "Well, that would be okay if your parents would allow that. We are located outside the city, in a small town called Salem. Would you need a ride?" The professor asked while looking in their direction, but it didn't seem they were paying us too much attention from across the backyard. With that as a cue, I decided to give a little more information. "Oh, that's easy. I ran out to the Atlantic and back within like 5 minutes tops. Maybe less. I have to figure out some optics to keep up with my speed. I replied to his ride comment, waving it away. No way was I planning to take a car, when I could just run out there and back. You would prove quite the fun challenge for Dr. McCoy when you visit the mansion. The professor smiled at me. Wow, you have Dr. Hank McCoy at your school. No one has seen him in years. Is that where he has been hiding out all this time? No way. I have to meet him. I asked, causing the professor to chuckle to himself. Well, I'll be damned. I knew the man was a double-edged blade, but he also had a heart of gold. To just let me come and go from school. Shit, I can't let him die no matter what. Also must meet the beast, cause he is the freaking beast. Man, I have so many theories about his transformation, I want to see if I am right or not. Shit, now I am torn, but I made my choice. I'll stay here in NYC with Peter and Gwen. This city will make me world famous. Since I just got in the School of Supers, it's time I build my warehouse into its proper base and keep an eye out for when Peter gets his powers. Yay me. Make a little progress and realize how much more I have to make it through. Shit, Hulk is going to happen soon and my skinny but doesn't even have a super suit. Shit, forget the super suit, I need the brain. And not Banner's brains, no. I need the going to be the former leader. And the best way to get him on my side is to shame General Ross. Another issue is how do I get from here to there? Shit, now I feel like a rent-a-hero. So with that understanding made it's time to convince my parents, who might not even care. Now that I think about it, this might be that I have always been a responsible child/teenager. Adult trust for the win. Yay. My parents came and met us halfway, followed by Logan and Aurora. Well, I guess with those smiles on their faces, that's a sign that they are all for this super-powered school thing. Yay. Talk about fun times ahead, but I am about to shatter that. So I have made a deal with the professor that I will go to Saturday school at the Institute. You know, learn some cool things, hang out with cool kids like me, and maybe help them with higher learning of self. I snarked in turn, which wiped the smiles off my parents' faces. Yikes from their looks, it didn't seem like they were prepared for that to come out of my mouth. Why can't you go to this school since it's for supers like yourself? My dad asked with a baffled look on his face. That was wiped away after my mom smacked him a good one. He doesn't want to leave Gwen, you oaf, she answered him. Well damn, I could have used her as a good excuse. I guess this was a perfect excuse, so I said nothing and my dad ate it all up. Well, that would explain it. Fine, as long as the professor agrees, then it's fine with us. Was all he replied while rubbing the spot my mom had hit him in the arm. And that's a fine aspiration, and since we have come to an arrangement, it's time for us to bid ourselves farewell and goodbye. Have a great evening. Also Ben, I shall see you this weekend. Let us say on Saturday at 9 a.m. sharp. The professor spoke up from his chair. That's fine with me, professor. Thanks, and I'll see you then. Also, think about the use of the term metahuman. It's a better definition of what we have become. I plan to work to make that term stand for something great. Let's progress into the future together, Professor. And like history has shown us, it all starts with a word. So let us make a history of our own. With the path we would like it to take. I replied to the guy as he prepared himself to leave. That's a lot to take away from this meeting, Benjamin. It would be fun to have you around the school, the professor stated while rolling away in his chair. So myself, Logan, and Aurora shook hands goodbye and am happy she didn't give me the cold shoulder. That's going to be weird. I know next to nothing about the nature goddess, but hey, what's life without its little challenges? Man, that's one super sweet Bentley. I wonder if the professor would let me drive her around. 1 week later, Mansion Man. This place had a fantastic amount of grass and land for days. And I do mean days. The professor's family must have about over 100 acres of land. Now I was in the danger room being introduced to Dr. Hank McCoy, better known as the Beast of Legend. And I was kind of disappointed. It looked like he was stuck between half man half lion, but he stopped transforming somewhere along the way. Now he looks like a catman, and that's not even close to scary or as intimidating as I imagined. Dr. Hank McCoy stood at a tall 6 feet 3 inches, with what looks to be blue fur all over the facial features of a big cat. That's just so depressing. Ugh, let's get this day over with already. I didn't want to meet a freaking cat man. Being in Dr. McCoy's lab was awesome, and there were so many shiny toys. That's a material combination machine. Crap, I wanted to get my hands on these toys. I knew why I was here for something that looks like a super treadmill. Man, this thing was beefy. This treadmill had what looks like frictionless hyperglide treads. I noticed the hookups for energy dampers and sonic mufflers. What is that, a speedometer? Hell yes. I knew I had the speed force from the comics, not that janky broke stuff they had in the TV show. No, I had access to that unlimited monster of raw speed and power. I wanted to make light speed my bitch. I wanted to do things the Flash did and more. I wanted the speed that let Flash evacuate an entire city in less than a microsecond as a nuke went off. Hell, I followed the calculations for those for a whole week. The final numbers showed Barry was moving at about 13 trillion times the speed of light. That was the same speed force from the comics. This also allowed him to witness events that occur in less than an attosecond. The reason that achievement was so massive is because 12 attoseconds is the shortest measurable period recorded by any current scientist. This was more than an enormous breakthrough. And people never even realized because in 1 second light can circle the Earth roughly 7.5 times. If your perception of time reaches the point that you can perceive a single attosecond of light, then everything would appear frozen, stuck in place. This would be due to catching up with the molecules it's passing through because light would have barely managed to move from one atom to the next within that attosecond. It would be a great big pause of light. My brain was putting the points and facts together, and I loved this effect that the speed force was having on my intellect. Now I was super excited. I grabbed the headset from and hopped right on the treadmill cause crap was about to go down. I wanted proof that I will be the undisputed fastest man alive and no one could even begin to try and take that claim away from me. Focus. Focus. I am speed. And with that, I was off running at an easy jog. 728 miles per hour. I barely felt anything, no friction, no resistance, nothing at all. It was just me and the treadmill. Speed force, oh speed force, how I love you. Pushing some more, I broke the sound barrier. 1,345 miles per hour, the machine read out to me. Yes, I was going standard jet speeds. Kaboom. 2,774 miles per hour. It read out again as my lighting started to show up without my summons. Now that I was able to stretch my legs, it's time to make some real effort. So I went for hypersonic speeds, 16,658 miles per hour. And I still felt nothing, and I needed more speed, 97,887 miles per hour. So now I was in damn it all mode. I had a treadmill that's not breaking down. So damn it all, and let's do this shit. 135,245 miles per hour. 162,802 miles per hour. 202,658 miles per hour. The number just kept going up, and I was in the freaking zone. I felt the lightning in my very soul signing out for me to keep on going. I felt the speed force in my blood in my very cells. The lightning was pumping through my veins, through every nerve in my body. I was no longer me. I was more, so much more now. My very eyes themselves blazed with the lightning pouring off of my body, but it was paid no attention at all. More speed. 303,564 miles per hour. Stop. Benjamin, you have to stop. I didn't notice it yet, but the treadmill was starting to give out at the speeds I was going. Smoke was already coming out of parts, but I didn't care at all. I yanked the headset off and kept on going. I was alive in a way, and I wasn't going to give this up yet. 353,669 miles per hour. If I were anywhere close to a typical speedster, I would be dead by now. My body would have gone into shock, my bones would have shattered, and I would have shitted out my guts all over the lab floors. My very footsteps spoke with the very sound of thunder itself, and I wanted more. 400,321 miles per hour. 477,212 miles per hour. 505,487 miles per hour. 600,026 miles per hour. 667,248 miles per hour. 705% dollar and mph. Then it all went silent, or that was I at least thought happened. Once I stopped looking at the messed up speedometer screen. I took a good look around myself, and I noticed that everything was frozen in motion. Razor-sharp shrapnel was in the air, and the damn treadmill was blowing up right under me. Well, F me sideways. Can't a man enjoy his powers? Hopping off the treadmill, I just had to pull the ultimate last move. As I was maneuvering around the lab, I grabbed all the floating shrapnel debris out of the air, placed them down in a corner, with that out of the way ran right back up to the warped metal of the treadmill. Placing a hand on it, I willed the kinetic energy out of it and into myself. Felt like I took a shot of damn espresso. Talk about a jolt of excitement. With the way the plasma is flowing in the flame, I should do this again in a more controlled lab. Talk about a shortcut to understanding the Bose-Einstein condensate form of matter. With everything cleaned up nice and neat, I brought my perception back to normalized time. All I heard coming out of the next room over was, "Oh my gosh, Charles, do you know what he just did?" Like the jackass that I am, I couldn't help myself but walk up to the mirror. I knocked on it and gave my answer. Yeah, I am the fastest man alive. The fastest man alive, no pain, no gain. Spectacular Benjamin. Do you have any idea what you have discovered? Not just what you discovered, but what your body is doing. This dimensional energy to which you have gained access, it is so far in advance of any scientific discovery yet made. Do you understand that your body is being remade down to the very molecules themselves to harness and power functions of your body? From my calculations, you won't even need oxygen in 2 years. Your body will be functioning off of pure energy itself. This is fascinating. A discovery of a lifetime. Not only that, but from the scans it seems you have a form of energy manipulation. That explains why you're able to produce that protective screen around yourself. At first I believed that to be a self-contained, subconscious act. It also explains how you were able to wrap another person in this field of energy, enabling you to protect them also while moving at such speeds. Now just let me run some tests. I want to see how your neural synapses are firing. A whole new path of research in brain function can be opened up with studying your neural pathways. With a person of your abilities that can speed up and slow down, his perception would make a world of difference to the research, stated Dr. McCoy as he rambled on about my abilities. So how's it going, Hank? The kid passed his little tests yet? I heard a bang, but since everything is still standing, I guess it's nothing, Logan spoke up from my left, leaning on the wall 3 feet from me. Shit, came flowing out of my lungs as I swiftly turned around with my hands up. I looked like a total douche. Just imagine it now. Tall teenage male with sharp wild gray eyes, standing at 5 feet 11 in a medical bodysuit unitard with all the sensors blinking all over with his arms raised in awkward angles. Your form is all crap, kid. Logan spoke up while his focus was still on Dr. McCoy. Yes, everything is fine, replied Dr. McCoy as he was typing away at his terminal cataloging things that I was just starting to understand. I had somewhat of a clue on what was talking about as it was all comic knowledge for me anyway, but this whole not needing oxygen was new. It was tripping up my brain, and I was going to flip out if Logan hadn't said my form was shit. Taking a look at myself, I realized my arms were still up. But, since he said that, I might have to take him up for a match. Since you think that about my form, why don't you help me out? I asked Logan with an expectant look on my face. He turned and tilted his head to the side and then gave me the answer I was hoping for. Yeah, sure thing, kid's got an okay from the doc, and I'll show you our gym. Logan replied to me, but still kept his attention at. With that statement, I had the proverbial nerdgasm. Not only was I going to be able to see and try out the danger room, I was about to get one-on-one time training with Wolverine. There is no way this can go wrong. I have speed, perfect recall memory, and ideal muscle kinesthetic memory. This is going to be awesome. Yeah, I should have known how much I messed up. So here I was on my back for what seems like the 1000th time. Let's rewind time to find out how my over-arrogant but got handed to me. So with the all clear from Dr. McCoy, we headed for the danger room. We were standing out in the sub-basement of the mansion, and the walls were a shade of matte black with what looked like an LCD panel going along the whole of what seemed separated sections. We walked along the hallway, then took a right into a room with nothing but computer monitors. From a glance, I noticed some of the words had statements on the side monitors: weapon systems, oxygen levels, and also something saying artificial weather. While Logan stood off to the side, I looked out past the large window panes and looked into a room with nothing but blank silver walls. It was so damn unassuming what that giant 200 meters by 200 meter room could do. Alright, kid, let me introduce you to the danger room. We use this room to hone our skills and practice our abilities. Today's plans are to use this room and observe your skills. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. Everyone says they know how to fight. Logan grunted out at me while leading the way. I couldn't just keep my mouth shut. Well, I do know how to fight. Thank you very much. I kick a few bullies' asses monthly, was my reply to his little tiff from behind him. That caused Logan to chuckle. That ain't a fight. Those are some shitty kids scraping. I'll teach you how to fight if you're willing to learn, was his reply to my statement. That gave me heart palpitations, a lesson from the Wolverine himself. I was so down for this fight. And my hole opened up before I could think it through. AM game, let's go. Let's go, came out of my face. Logan just grunted at me with a small smile on his face. Then he spoke up and killed my vibe. Don't you want to get out of that unitard onesie? Realizing that hearing I could get in a fight with the main man himself got my excitement overriding my brain. That killed the super nerd mojo I was feeling though. Oh my gosh, yes please. Also, you wouldn't happen to know about any gym clothes available? I asked, hoping to everything that I didn't seem as awkward and embarrassed as I felt. Logan didn't seem to be at all interested in my situation. Yeah kid, don't sweat it, was all Logan said. We headed off the locker room, which I hadn't noticed previously was off to the right. It was weird. The room wasn't set up with much. A large display case was on the far end next to the showers over on the left behind some curtains. Now the lockers were located in the center, but there was another door on the other side. That might lead to the hangar, but I wasn't sure. Maybe I should ask after this. It would be so awesome to be able to see the X-Jet. Hell, I just had a realization. I would not be here unless I were being considered for the X-Men crap. I am being considered for the X-Men. Dr. McCoy just did a power test, and Logan's about to do a fight test. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be an X-Man, hell yeah. Ugh, I have to change the name somehow. But that's for another time. I must focus and give my game face. Danger room, alright kid, no speed. Let's see what you can do in a fight, came Logan's statement, shaking me out of my thoughts. I stood there over a mat that just materialized out of thin air. Crap, I forgot about access to advanced technology. So here I am, facing off with Logan, standing with the stance of a comfortable boxer. He straightened himself up, then walked over to me. Placing a hand on my back, he showed me set an angle to steady my body, then fixed my feet and helped me fix my center of gravity. After that he went back to his position and moved me forward. With a quick step in, I started with a quick jab. Something I have perfected across Flash Thompson faces back in school whenever I catch wind of him bullying Peter when I am not around. That jab did nothing to the man. Logan did a quick slap deflection on my hand, which hurt like all hell. I never even saw the hook coming for my face. I went down hard and rolled over to get back up onto my feet, and I was pissed. So that was his plan. No pulled punches, old-fashioned learning. Yeah, I knew I was biting off more than I could chew, but damn it. Getting back up from the ground, I started to walk around him. I noticed the way he was positioned and circled with me. Logan didn't have any of the jerky motions I had. So I started to mimic his motions. This evened out my flow. I felt so much smoother with my strides. Logan has always been a predator, and it takes an animal to fight an animal. I wanted this fight but never knew how much I was hungering for such an opportunity. Being able to fight one of the best of Marvels became my dream when I first met him. My ego kicked in and I added a little bit of speed, nothing major, just enough to give me an edge. Then I latched onto him with such a laser-focused intensity. I wanted to make sure he took notice of me. I was facing one of the best fighters to have ever lived. Even greater than Captain America himself, and I refused to be looked at as just another child. What I didn't realize though was my body was adapting to everything. My healing factor had kicked in sometime last week, so any of the bruisings that should have shown from the beating I received was healed in a matter of seconds. I would have known this if I wasn't so hot-headed. I lunged at him hard on the offense, throwing a left feint, yet I came in with a hard right kick that caught him in the ribs, throwing him across the mat. Yeah, that should teach him for not taking me seriously. That was when I should have known I messed up. Logan did a simple roll, pushed off the ground, and came right back at me. His eyes said it all. And now I was looking directly at the Wolverine himself. He didn't pop claws, but I knew I was in shit. My pride wouldn't let me admit defeat, and he came at me hard. The left cross and right crescent kick both came so hard and fast that even though I was able to block them, I was still knocked around due to his metal bones. Damn cheater was all I could think. Logan didn't let up. He threw out swings and strikes, then advanced into my space as I backed up to get some breathing room. I took a hook to the jaw, and then a snap kick threw me for a loop. I rolled out of the way from the stomp aimed at my head. He adjusted his swing to my side, but as I scrambled up to my feet, I grabbed it with a twist and pull. I was able to yank Logan off his feet. I got him, but he landed on his hands, spun, and practically flew back up. We both had a manic grin on our faces, enjoying the brawl for all it was worth. I was seeing and learning. I was forcing myself to adapt to the situation, trying to get every bit out of my body without going full-out speed force. I slapped a kick that came my way but was unable to block the fist that came straight for my nose. That knocked me back with a resounding crunch. The blackness spread out behind my eyelids for a second with flashes of red on the edges. Something struck my stomach, and something else hit me in the hip, but those hits didn't hurt as much. I refused to go down from this. My anger gave way to my determination. I was able to catch Logan with a solid hit to the jaw, then got in a lucky right cross. Fists and feet kept flying, but I knew that I would have to take a risk eventually. I was able to pull a sliding dodge past his guard and went for a headbutt. That was the dumbest move I could have ever pulled off. Foreheads slammed together. I staggered back, blinking like a freaking moron because I forgot Logan's damn skeleton was made of goddamn metal. Knocked on my, but all I could do was look at Logan as he loomed over me. Logan stepped closer and closer. He first had a look of interest on his face, which turned to surprise. I hooked his legs and swept them around, pulling him down towards myself. I pivoted upright, drawing back my right arm to throw another blow, only to discover that it wasn't going to work anymore as we separated. I had to shift positions, and I never saw the boot coming towards my face. So yeah, I had lost. And it wasn't just some ordinary loss either. I lost even after I cheated and got an assist with my powers. Whoa. I was awakened with a jolt. Yeah, the last thing I remembered was getting a foot to the face. Wait, I was fighting Logan, right? Yes, I was fighting Logan, so why am I laying down on the floor? Oh. Yeah, I lost. Now I realized that boot to the face was a signal my butt was grass. I huffed out a breath, feeling my defeat. Super speed and so much more, and I still lost. Alright, Sparky, now that you're awake, let's go. I need to run some errands, and you'd make a perfect way to shorten the time. He spoke to me as if we didn't just go at each other like animals. All I could do was a grunt, which in turn earned me a chuckle out of Logan. The man had beaten me and served me a slice of humble pie like it was nothing. Now I am hungry and just wanted to take a nap too. Wait a second. Why is nothing hurting? Logan, did you have the doc look me over? I don't feel bruised up or anything, I asked him, very confused by this fact. I knew Barry healed fast, but man, I was good to go plenty more rounds. My body was also feeling a lot stronger. Yeah, I might have to look into all that my body was capable of now. All that's been on my mind recently is just going faster. Maybe I could ask Doc and Logan to help me out. Nah, Sparky, you healed all on your own. Hell, you even healed mid-fight. Logan spoke to me, which made me perk up a bit. I am a super healer now. Wait a second, now that I put my mind to it. This means I have an accelerated healing factor. And if my ribs healed mid-battle, I would recover just as fast as Logan, if not quicker. My body isn't just healing my wounds, but it's making me that much stronger each time I push my limits without the speed force. I am positive I used a small portion of it to enhance the body. It seems like my recovery is far better than before. With all that rattling around in my brain, Logan followed me to the locker rooms. With a nice shower and more clean clothes, which all had the X for Xavier School for Gifted Individuals on them. I had to grab 4 bagels on the way out, but one didn't make it that far since a claw came out of nowhere and took it. Today's ride of choice was a beautiful forest green Range Rover. So now that we were on the road, the silence started to kill me. So being a person who couldn't keep his face shut, I had to speak up. So do you plan to tell me what that was all that about? I asked the man next to me. All Logan did was grunt at me. I whined to the man. Man, tell me, it's not as if I can complain. Even after you stomped 3 shades of crap out of me, I healed right up. So bygones are bygones, as far as I am concerned. I can care less about all that. I just wanted to see what you are made out of, to see if training you might be worth my time. Being a meta-human isn't easy. And I don't think anyone ever told you about what's going to come after you now that your powers spiked on the map, was Logan's reply to my whining. I had to fake some confusion for this next part. Wait, what do you mean? I thought only you guys and that Eric guy had the means to find me? I asked him, trying to play up the confusion. Logan grunted at me and then continued to speak. "Nah kid, we are just the nice ones about it. They know you're located on the East Coast now and they are going to wait for you to try something. Since you're not in the school, keep your eyes peeled," was all Logan said as he fell back into silence. "Sounds like you have had some experience," was my reply to the man as I also fell into silence with him. All I got out of the man was silence and another grunt. So I just sat there in the Ranger enjoying the ride along. As we went down a coastal road, a blacked-out SUV pulled up right behind us. This would have been fine because we live in NYC, and a lot of wealthy people drive blacked-out vehicles. They either have the money or want privacy. No, what made it strange was that 5 more drove past us, then boxed us in with no warning. Bap. 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 We got boxed in on all sides, front to backside to side. Yeah, it is confirmed my luck was all kinds of evil. I was extremely sure they were not here for me. I just so happened to be in the car when the Wolverine gets backed into a corner and captured. Growing super excited, I tried to vibrate my body at super speeds, and that's when I realized I messed up. I had never trained in versatility. I am still one fresh baby speedster, and all I know how to do is run and protect. No lightning toss, nothing, and what makes it even worse is I just blew my wad trying to get fancy. My nose started to bleed, and my ears bled, and my internal organs went all flip-flop. "Sparky, stay with me. Come on kid, why did you have to do something so stupid?" Logan spoke from his position. The last thing I saw before passing out was a canister shot into the Rover through the windows. I was all kinds of screwed, and I had no one to blame but myself for being so stupid. I was jolted awake again, this time by extreme amounts of pain coming from my left leg. My mouth tasted of iron maybe. This had to be from my blood. The air was all haze, yet the pain hitting me made it all so clear in an instant. I felt connected yet not connected all at once, if that was even possible. I was on some table staring up at the cemented ceiling. The walls had greenish mold growing, and that told me we were somewhere by water or deep in the mountains somewhere. And yet the pain persisted, and it was getting on my nerves. Also, why can't I feel anything other than the pain? I knew a second later, and I wished I freaking didn't. The table I was strapped down on was massive, and I recognized it instantly. This table was from the movie Blade 2 when he was knocked out and strapped to it for his blood. The table had a lined 1-inch rim going all the way around. Not only that, I had to be a good 4 feet up off the ground. What made matters worse is the fact they had large lights all aimed at me. I am stuck here tied down with a ball gag in my mouth, and they had lights all on me. Am I being experimented on? No, that's impossible. I would have felt something? I thought that as I heard a buzz and felt more extreme sharp pain. No, this couldn't be happening. No, not to me, no. I struggled and pulled on the speed force, but the feeling was slippery to hold. Then I got the shocking jolt of my life from my neck. That's when I froze. Then I pulled again and was shocked again. Now I was breathing hard, hyperventilating as I screamed out, trying to get up off the table. All of my senses were back now. I was vividly aware of how I had both arms chained down and locked in place. They had both my upper arms and lower wrist all locked in place. Then I also felt both legs locked in place. So they put a damper shock collar around my neck. They put a collar around my neck. That was the final straw. I lost my crap and shook with all that anger. Not only did I want out, but I also wanted vengeance. I looked around from my position to notice a crap-face, evil-looking mad doctor was cutting away at my body. And he was talking to me now that I was awake. He started his evil monologue. Like who monologues? You're awake, it would seem. You have the very unfortunate honor of being alive to see what comes next. I hope you don't mind. We had to get a different bone saw. Your skin, muscles, and bones carry amazingly strong resistance to everything we have tried. And unfortunately, we don't happen to have any lasers available in this facility. It is quite unfortunate I have to resort to such crude tools. Don't you think so? Of course you think so. Ha. Ha. You're here experiencing it. Just know that it's an honor to operate on you. With your help, we will get one step closer to making humanity prosper. Your sacrifice won't go unappreciated. Yes, where was I? Seem to have burnt out the saw on your fibula. Don't worry though, young man, this is almost done. Then we shall start at once with the rest of your organs. The man stated while giving me his creepy smile. It felt like how I first died, stuck on concrete, unable to do anything. just slowly accepting what was happening to me as my blood drains onto the pavement. I refused it all, and I refused to accept death again. I looked at the man with nothing but hatred in my heart. All I wanted was to live in peace and be a hero. The universe wouldn't let me go, so it kept pushing and pushing. I am no longer in my reality, and this isn't some comic or a web novel where the brave hero makes it. One slip and I'm dead, and I don't want to run the risk of that. Yeah, I learned my lesson now. Damn all that, it's time to push back. No more slacking off. Time to put that ego aside. I was lucky with the Speed Force. No more leaving life to chance. I will survive. I will conquer this. I refuse to be another tombstone in Xavier's damn school. No one shall make me a victim. I will have vengeance. These thoughts burned in my heart, and I wanted nothing more than to rip them all to pieces for what they have done to me. And I knew where to start by getting my powers back first. Closing my eyes, I felt for it, because there is no way I could be disconnected from the Speed Force. This was a cosmic force tied into my very soul. No simple collar should be able to disconnect me at all. Look like he gave up. It is for the best anyway. This way, his body will be used for the greater good. I heard the scientist mutter to himself. The lights started to flicker, and then the monitors came alive with buzzing, and then scrambled visuals began to play across the screens. I was looking inwards for my astral form. I saw it, the stream of the Speed Force, and it was just waiting for me to grab it. Although I tried, my astral form could not go forward at all. So I stood there and just looked at it with my anger boiling to overflow. I will have my vengeance, and nothing will deny me this. That was when it clicked in place for me. I wanted my vengeance, with my being the keyword. I never really saw the Speed Force as something that was my own. The thought of Barry Allen and his discovery and usage has been holding me back. I have used the Speed Force, but I have never honestly used it as my own. With that thought, it reacted to me in response, and I knew just what had to happen. I discarded all thoughts of Barry Allen. This was my Speed Force. I brought it with me to the Marvelverse, and I was going to wield it as its avatar and chosen. With that, my entire world exploded with nothing but raw power. My very nerves were singing with joy. The Mad Doctor watched in fascination as the very air itself crackled with electricity. The bone saw the doctor used was the first thing to explode, then everything flowed after. The doctor should have been worried about his hand that was bleeding, but he couldn't take his eyes off the form of the young man before him. The doctor watched as bones realigned and reattached. Then the nerves and muscle groups regrew just like that. One moment the bone was broken, and the next moment, it had all the muscle fibers back flowing with a healthy pink shade. Then the skin covered over the wound, and that was when the young man sat up. I understood now. I was the Speed Force, and the Speed Force was me. With just a simple thought, I commanded my leg to heal, then sat up straight. I had plans to teach the doctor, and his backers. There are some people that you don't mess with. And I, Benjamin Anthony Blake, just joined that short list of individuals. I bit right through the ball gag they placed in my mouth. Then I spat out the pieces onto the floor, and that was when the doctor realized he was in trouble. He made a mad dash toward the door, but I was having none of that today. I was the Speed Force, and the Speed Force was me. With but a step, I was standing in front of the door blocking his exit. Now that I was here, I noticed it was a rather large steel frame bolt-on with a spin wheel opener. That way, if a meta-human escaped, he would be trapped until a containment team can come and detain them. I stared down at the doctor, and he stared right back at me. The doctor had gone eerily still, like he was being looked at by an enormous predator. Maybe I am, because what I had planned for him was going to balance the scales. With one simple pull, I removed the vile collar from around my neck and looked at him. My God, why didn't that work on you? It worked on all the rest. I heard the evil doctor state in his astonishment. That brought no solace to my heart. It's simple, Doc. My powers don't work like the rest. Now you're going to tell me willingly. Who put this collar on me, and I'll let you die fast. I stated to him while feeling my anger swell up within me. That freaked him out. I don't know, I swear. The guards brought you like that to me, the doctor screamed at me. Is that your final answer? Was the only reply I gave him. This doctor was going to get no sympathy from me. I am all out of compassion for all these bastards. And with that, the doc shook his head, yes, but he was about to wish that he had more to say. I was in such a foul mood, and this damn man had no more information for me. Then his use to me was finished. Now he shall suffer my vengeance. I started by grabbing his face and staring into him past his eyes and into his very soul. With that very simple action, my voice reverberated across the whole base. With your vile act of defiling my body, I sentence you to death. Logan was sitting in his cell thinking of a way to escape. These morons always forgot about his claws, and no damper can indeed hold him. All he had to do was figure out where the kid was and hightail it out of here. Maybe kill a guy or two for information towards the exit. And that's when he heard it from his cell, like a note of finality and death. Guess the kid's awake and not too happy about all this. Guess it was time to pop claws and go meet up with Sparky. With the doctor's head in my hands, I pulled back and slammed it into the wall hard, making sure not to break his skull. I wanted him awake for this. You think you can just cut me up into parts and I would be fine with it, Doc? Bam. I was maneuvering the doc, so his back was to the door. I stepped to the side, turned and smashed in his right leg. It folded under my new strength like it was tissue paper. That woke the doctor up out of his daze, and he screamed at the top of his lungs. That was when I went to work on him. Grabbing the doctor with my left hand, I held him still while I focused my Speed Force aura to leach into his body. I was not aiming to protect him. I wanted him to experience what I did next with such vivid clarity. I needed my aura to keep him alive. It wouldn't do if he went into a shock early and died on me during this fun ride he was getting. As I pushed the aura out of me and into him, I felt the bioelectricity the human body can produce in him. It felt so sophisticated yet so simple and elegant. This had opened me up to so many possibilities, and I had an unwilling guinea pig ready for testing. I grabbed onto his body functions and sped up his perception of reality while keeping my own steady in real time. I wanted him to experience this for at least 100 years then die. I wanted this to be as slow and painful as I could make it. With that intent, the Speed Force sang with my versatility and usage. His body went rigid in my grasp, and I watched as his pupils dilated. Slowly I pushed my right hand into his still beating chest, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom style. With my hand in his chest, I hooked my fingers around the arteries and pulled. The wail he let out was music to my ears. I looked him right in his face and spoke my piece. I will have my vengeance in this life and not the next. With that said, I pulled his heart out viciously, then tossed it across the room. I had to get it out of my hand. This moment was my first kill ever. I was so focused on my revenge. I never stopped to think. Then I doubled over and vomited everything out. I had to get out of here now. Yes, I was trapped in a room, but I was still in my Super Saiyan mode. I had to keep my crap together. The doctor was my first kill, but he will not be the last. I had to put stuff into perspective for myself. My innocence was gone. This was a world of unforgettable evils, and I had to find a way to live in it. I was still in my medical gown, and I needed clothes badly, but I refused to wear what that doctor had on. Now it's time to test my imagination and the Speed Force's flexibility. Pulling on the Speed Force, I built a mental construct of a red metal pair of Soul Grip Jikatabi. Holding the mental image was nothing. The tough part was pushing it into the aura and forcing it into solidification. With that thought, the mental strain lessened, and now I found the secret: the more willpower you put into building the Speed Force construct, the better, since it trains the brain's ability to create. Next, I went for black ninja pants and a shirt with red lightning highlights. But I didn't want just any pants. I wanted the Ryu Hayabusa pants and shirt armor combo. It took me 6 solid minutes of concentration to form everything I needed. That was when I realized I needed something for my face at high speed, or better yet, I need a helmet now. That way, I don't have to worry about much when I fight crime. I forced constructed the Hayabusa helmet with lenses to protect my eyes from any lucky hazards. With all that complete, it was time to leave this godforsaken hole in the ground. Reaching the door, I remembered I didn't know how to phase. That was alright though, because I had full access to the Speed Force and I wanted out. Taking a few steps back, I gave the door a lightning-enhanced Spartan kick. That steel-reinforced door with a tumbler lock wasn't prepared for a pissed-off Speed Force user on the warpath. I was walking out into the hall, and I was presented with pandemonium. It was chaos. Armed guards were running to and fro, so that means Logan got out somehow. That means I no longer have to rescue him. I did a quick dodge up the wall, ran along the roof, and slammed my aura-reinforced fist into the face of some random guard that fired rounds in my direction. Yeah, no way do I plan to get shot up. I was already at my limits, so damn this place and everyone in it. After dispatching that guard, I stole his machete off his back. It also turned out to be one I recognized also. It had a combat grip handle applied with a special anti-slip coating serrated backside and with the blade being about 2 feet long by 3 inches wide. I took it and ran. I wasn't planning on going full sprint through the complex. Going those speeds would get me to my destination quickly, yes, but with my current pace, I had a goal. I planned to slice every guard in between me and the exit. I would not rest easy tonight until they felt how I felt on that metal table. Then I moved with a savage purpose. Every round shot in my direction was sliced in half. I learned my lesson. I would not get cocky and grab the bullets like some amateur speedster. I already knew I was faster than a speeding bullet, and I had no need to prove that to the masses. But they needed to feel the fear. They needed to fear me, knowing that no matter how much they shoot at me, none of the bullets will be able to get through. The only thing on my mind was my vengeance against this accursed group of people and getting out of here. I had all confidence Logan would make it out, but maybe I should check for other people. Turning a corner, I was met with a wall of nothing but automatic weapons fire. Weapons of those calibers were no longer a threat to me in my current state. I was in accelerated time, yet I was also living standard time all at once. I was genuinely zen with the speed force, and she was with me. That was when I felt the tug, and I followed it. My aura was extended 4 feet out in a radius around me. And it was like, whoa, every detail was sent to my mind. With the accelerated nature of my brain, all that data was instantly processed and compiled. It was all at my fingertips. For instance, there is a drop of water falling mid-air behind me. Everything within 4 feet of the aura was known to me. That wasn't all that I was able to do with it. With my aura extended, every round that entered had its motion absorbed, and they all fell on the ground. Not even waiting for the guards to register what happened, within a step, I was in their midst. My first slash went through the large burly guy with a superior groomed beard, but that wasn't going to save him today. I sliced through him like he wasn't even there and proceeded to dismantle the rest. Before I was done, I grabbed the last man and shook him. I vibrated him so hard that his insides just liquefied within his body. After that, I came to a fork in the road. It was time to put on the speed, no more mindless killing of the guards. I found Logan drinking something while leaned up against a door leading out. "So did you get it all out of your system?" Logan asked from his spot up against the wall. "What do you mean?" I asked the man. I was in a foul mood, and I did not need his shit right now. "Everyone heard your declaration to the base, Sparky," Logan stated with a huff from his spot. "They collared me, Logan. Like I was a freaking slave, like I was less than a damn human." I screamed into his face. He gave me a solid look like he wanted to trade blows. I was ready for him. To hell with that no-speed bullcrap from last time. Logan just let out a huff. "I know Sparks, I know. Come meet the new kids," he stated while heading out the door. "Shit, I forgot to try and rescue anyone that might have survived," I replied to him after realizing he saved people while I was out for blood. "I figured, you were raising one hell of a distraction." He grumped with another huff. Outside the mountain base, of course it was on the side of a mountain. These barbarians have no taste or style. In a small clearing stood about 3 individuals, and I didn't notice anything new. Everyone was in rags and looked like a hot mess. I wanted to go home and sleep for a year. The fastest man alive. Get jiggy with it. Secret room, secret location. Well, that was a fair disappointment. "Do we have an assessment of what we lost in the facility?" asked a person sitting in a red chair cloaked in shadows. "So far, minor things. We didn't keep anything of importance at that location. It was deemed unsatisfactory for our needs other than a stop-off or storage," replied another figure cloaked in shadows, sitting in his green chair. "So we lost Weapon X again. And now we have this discovery. Do we have any information on this new mutant?" replied the shadowed figure in the red chair. "Currently no, but I have been able to recover a recording of the outside conversation. It seems that the collar was a trigger for this new mutant. If we choose to pursue in the future, we need to be aware of this," replied the shadow sitting in the green chair. An interesting trigger, isn't it? We should also look into containment for this new mutant, even if that power damper collar didn't work. We know our latest assets' powers are electricity-based, so let us build in that direction. Let's go with triple redundancy, layered with a release to direct the power to the ground. Also, make sure the asset can't overload the system. Spoke up the figure in the red shadow. "Yes, "We shall create a containment suite, then send our operatives to recover our new asset," replied the green-shadowed figure as he faded out of existence. Upstate New Hampshire, somewhere in the mountains, Benjamin. So here I was sitting in a field with Logan and the few other escapees. And man, did we look like a hot mess. The girl from one of the trees on the far edge of the clearing, or at least I believed she was female from her facial features, chest, and hips, was dirty from head to toe. She was in what seemed to be a prison shirt covered in some green gunk. From my position, I can see that her pants were missing a leg. Which was just weird. How do you lose a pants leg in a situation like this? But she didn't seem deterred by that by any means. Next was this big guy looking around with shifty eyes. I wouldn't have paid much attention to him if it wasn't for Logan looking in his direction. Which means I better be on guard for him. He was decked out in the same prison garb of the other chick, but had no sleeves and was rocking a mohawk that looked like it had seen better days. Now the last girl was giving off a weird, creepy vibe, and she kept looking at Logan like she wanted to peer into the man's soul. She also wore the same prison getup as the other two, but she had no missing sleeves or pants leg. Hell, she was even cleaner than the others, and her hair was up in a ponytail, and she looked ready to go a few rounds. Alrighty, then I was getting tired of all this silence. Turning to Logan, I asked the question on my mind, and probably there's also. "So tell me, Logan, do we have a way out of this crap show we are in?" I asked the beefy man as he just leaned up against a tree relaxing. Logan's expression took a shift which didn't answer my question. Then he looked at me evenly. "Yeah, the professor is sending the Blackbird." "Oh come on, you know where we are, and you didn't tell me?" He let out a grunt at me and spoke up. "I thought you would be more worried about yourself and not where we are." I gave him my best irritated sounding noise and looked away from the man. Now that he said something about it, I was feeling drained. All of my initial adrenaline boost and anger from waking up to my situation was bleeding off, and I had a lot to figure out. Down in that base, I had killed a man in cold blood. Worse than that, I ripped his heart out and forced him to experience that for 100 years. That was some savage shit I did, and I never knew I was capable of all that. Not only that, but I am also extremely sure that this used to be a human base. That was added to my list of issues because I remember them from the comics, but they weren't in any of the MCU movies. They wanted to harvest my organs to further themselves along their sick path of evolution. They were after Logan, and I just happened to be on the bed being cut apart first. To remember that made me shake right at my spot on the ground. This situation sucks because now I have to change so many plans. I had thought I could be a hero, but now that I am intimately related to the X-Men, that might need to change. That means I'll also have to face a lot of their rogues gallery, and I'm in no way in any form or shape prepared for that. I need to do better. I need a plan of action, and I need to figure out my way in this messed up world. Everything isn't cookies and rainbows as I used to think they were. I can die and fast if I don't buckle down and get my crap together, and the best way to start is with the X-Men. I had Logan as a fighting instructor, and I had the Beast as a teacher. I needed to put that to good use. I don't remember all of my Marvelverse trivia, but what I do know is that all these groups are going to be well-funded and very ruthless. While I was all lost in my thoughts, out from over the forest came a silver disc-looking object. It was Old Bucket Helm himself, and it looks like he came prepared today. Magneto dropped his flying saucer in the middle of the clearing, looked at us, then looked at the others. I wanted to geek out so much, but it had been a long day, and no matter how cool he looked in his iconic helm, I wasn't in the mood for his shit. He was about to find out the hard way how foul my mood was. With him was the blue goddess of death herself, Mystique, standing at his back right shoulder. Next to her was, holy crap, is that Sabretooth? It looked like him, and damn was he massive. He stood a good 6 feet 10 inches from what I could spot. Sabretooth had that weird yellow and brown onesie suit on with the fur around his neck. Damn, he noticed Logan first, then his eyes flicked at me. While looking at me, he smiled. Well, I was not in the mood for his alpha male ego bullshit today. If this came to a fight, and I was hoping to the high heavens that it didn't come down to that, I would have to tank Magneto with a blitz attack first, because he would be the linchpin in their group. Rejoice, for I have come to save you, my fellow brothers and sisters, was how the man started. I have come to not only to save you, but also give you a place among my brotherhood of mutants. Magneto, we all just finished escaping with our lives. Make them the offer and stop the drama play. Please, cause I'm not in the very best of moods. So make your offer, and if they want to leave with you, take them. Those that want our help, we will take them back to the school with us. Since our ride is already on the way. I spoke up from my position, cutting him off. I couldn't help but snort. "And who might you be?" came Magneto's question. And with that, I realized that I still had the Speed Force Hayabusa helm covering my head and face. With that as a cue, I sent the helm away. Pretty neat trick, right? I had realized that after I made all my Speed Force constructs, they became little sensations in the back of my mind. So while I was going about dismantling the base, I decided to create mental blocks in correlation to each construct. "A young Mr. Blake, fancy meeting you here," came Magneto's reply as I showed everyone my face. "After all this, I'll have to find time to see what more I can do." Again, I had to kick myself for only using my powers for speed. At least I was extremely aware now of what I lacked, and can make some improvements before the world decided to kick me in the nuts again. Yeah, I should have kept my mouth shut because with that statement Magneto's eyes narrowed, then Sabretooth took a step forward. I took a look at Mystique. She smiled at me and then took a step back. That was interesting, and I knew I couldn't trust her. She always had an angle no matter how lovely those hips were. She always tries to get an edge over someone, and I'm dating Gwen. I can't go off gallivanting with the 300-year-old blue goddess. That was when my mind clicked. This lady was over 300 years old. The only way she could have survived and lived this long is to have some skills, and I want those skills. I knew there was no way I could trust her, but I needed the skills she had. Fighting Logan can only get me so far, and I already have the beast for my other issues. I noticed Sabretooth edging closer to our spot. Logan was already checking him out, and I realized this was about to be another brother bullshit scrap. What shocked me more was when Sabretooth made his statement to me. "What did you say, kid?" asked the big brute known as Sabretooth. I shared a look with Logan as I got up from my spot. "Do you mind if I take this fight?" I asked Logan while rolling my shoulders. "Yeah, kid, just don't kill him. I think you have done enough of that today," was all Logan told me. Then he just sat on the ground and leaned back against the tree and just looked in our direction like he was about to enjoy a show. In a way, I guess he was. "You have a lot of confidence in the kid," came Sabretooth's gruff voice. All Sabretooth got in the form of a reply from Logan was a snort. Yeah, that caused me to chuckle inside. With that, I had my mind all made up, and I planned to go all Raiden God of Thunder for Mortal Kombat all across his ass. He was going to learn not to bother an Omega-level teenager going through his existential crisis. First, I had to toss aside the machete because Logan asked me not to kill the man. Then I pulled on my well of power from the Speed Force. This allowed my body to burst forward with massive amounts of electricity. When I did that, Sabretooth pulled a half step, and that's when I heard him say, "Oh." That's all he was able to get out because with my next movements, I blasted myself at him. Today, I woke up on an experiment table in a lab and he came here with his bullshit. Sabretooth was about to experience the full force of my bad mood today. Logan only asked me not to kill him. Lucky for me, Sabretooth has a healing factor, so that means he can take some punishment. Like I said, that's all he was able to get out because with my next movements, I blasted myself at him flying horizontally across the grass with his chest as my target. The goal wasn't to kill him, only to break a few ribs. It turns out Sabretooth had great reflexes because he surprisingly tried to swing at me, and he had some crazy fast reflexes because when my fists made contact with his chest, he thought he could get me with a hammer blow from overhead. He was sorely mistaken, because with my fight/training time with Logan, I no longer dropped my guard after dealing massive amounts of damage to my opponents. That was a hard-learned lesson, and I was grateful for it because it showed right now with me thrashing Sabretooth back to Magneto's feet. With the overhead blow going straight for my back, I decided to grab hold of Sabretooth's body. Spinning myself around him at my hyperspeeds. Man, I love being able to go as fast as I wanted. With myself sped up faster than the rest, I grabbed Sabretooth from the back around his waist. Then I dug deep, and then launched us both into the air. There was no escaping for Sabretooth, and we came down hard in the form of a German suplex. We hit the ground with such force the trees shook all around us. Sabretooth bounced back up off the ground roaring at me, but I was ready for his retaliation. Flying at Sabretooth at super speeds, I was on him in a second. With just a turn and twist of my hips, I planted the sole of my foot straight into his jaw and I launched Sabretooth clear off the ground. Turning back around to face my flying foe, I reached and snatched Sabretooth out of the air by his waist. Then with a mighty heave and a twist, we launched clear into the air again. A savage grin came across my face because I had the mother of all powerbombs ready for him. With gravity taking back over, we came down with a devastating crash with all of the focus of the devastation aimed right at Sabretooth. Within that same nanosecond, all the electric charge that was being built up within me blasted out and focused on Sabretooth. Everyone heard it, and then they saw it. Everyone witnessed the flash of lightning, then the charge. After that, the fighters vanished, later reappearing in a German suplex right in front of Magneto. They watched as the young man got up, dusted himself off, then went to check to make sure his opponent was alive, then went back to the side of his friend. Everything went silent, with the only sound present was the sizzle of fur from the one known as Sabretooth. Even the forest had gone silent from that explosion of action. From across the way, Mystique had a definite smile on her face. Well, crap. Trying not to get her attention got me her undivided attention. With that, she came forward to our corner of the clearing as Magneto went to talk with the rest. "I can tell you have made some improvements," came Mystique's voice from behind me. "Nope, I'm still adjusting," was all I could reply to her. With her so close to me, I was trying hard not to roll my eyes all over her form. One must show respect to the lady that can be anyone you ever knew, because when your back's turned, she could decide to slip a knife across your throat when you're least expecting it. I heard a sigh from Mystique before she spoke again. "Must you act so stiff around me?" Mystique asked, and I heard the frown in her voice. Yeah, that threw me for a loop, and I couldn't help but sputter. And cue Logan's bark of laughter at my expense. "Listen, I am trying to be respectful, okay? And you're making it hard just walking around naked like that," came my quick reply to the gorgeous blue lady before me. "Oh, that I can fix easily," she hummed, and just like that she changed. Spectacular would be the word to describe it. It started with a ripple from her head, then moved its way down. Then she was standing before me with the look of an Amazonian. Mystique kept her body proportions, but now she had this fierce warrior woman look to her features. Her hair was now of a brunette color, her face was far more angled and sharper looking, and she was wearing a blue pants suit. Hell, she even included glasses. Talk about the ultimate power lawyer. Hell, I am pretty sure she probably has a law degree or more than a few in different subjects. She has been alive for one hell of a long time. Gotta pass the time somehow. That had to be for me. I had known Mystique could make clothes, but I should have figured she would be able to make lenses also. Then I had to open my big mouth. "Why did you change your skin color?" "I honestly don't mind the blue. It's just the whole nudist thing that was throwing me off," I questioned with a tilt of my head. And with a tilt of her head, she changed her skin back. Yeah, she still looked good to me. Man, I was going to get into so much trouble when I told Gwen all about this later. "So tell me, why don't you want to join us?" Mystique asked me straight to my face. So now I had to think. Hell, I could do what I wanted with any supergroup, but I didn't want to do it from their side. It took me a while to formulate my answer for her, but I only had one answer. That answer is rather simple. Your Brotherhood of Mutants has allowed itself to be viewed as a world terrorist organization. I can't be a part of that when I decide to put my name out there. Yes, I get that you do what you do for metahuman kind, but you guys never stop to think about how you're doing things. For example, Magneto came here, flying on an open saucer, and no one is wearing a mask. That's just ridiculous. Think about that. If Eric or anyone in the Brotherhood wanted a regular life, they can't because they have been spotted on camera doing something. Then they are being categorized as a terrorist to the public. Yeah, I'm metahuman and proud, but I'm not stupid. The protection of my own identity is critical if I want to do anything. And I can't have any of that being associated with terrorism. It's not much, but I'm trying to think about the long term, and I do not need to separate myself from the rest of the world. That's also another ridiculous point you guys are missing, but I am just a moronic teenager. I want a chance to change the world in my way, and I can't do that following orders from Magento. The things I want to do will clash with his views, but the professor is flexible on everything. So we can do great work together. I told her, being as straight as I could about the situation, since she wanted an honest answer. I hope I don't get killed for telling it like it is. I'll come to find you, and we can have a proper chat. With that, she just stared at me, humming to herself. With a flick of her hips, turned around and headed back in the direction of Magneto and the rest of his crew. It seems like he was able to get 2 of the escapees to follow him. While Mystique hummed to herself, she set the one known as Benjamin before her with a leveled look while mulling over his little tirade. He keeps raising fixed points, but it seems there's more to it that he isn't telling. His worldview can't be this broad without experience or prior knowledge of what's to happen. I remember that he had some warehouse in Hell's Kitchen. I'll have to find time to stop by. Well damn, I guess I'll be going to the school where you learn to do that. Came the voice of the girl over from the far edge of the clearing. And with that, it was like a dam broke loose cause overhead the X-Jet came flying in low, then out jumped Storm with a swoosh. She was flying down next to us. She took one look at me and frowned. Yeah, I was not in the best of shapes or conditions. Blood was dry on my torso and legs. My face was caked with dirt, and my hair was an absolute mess. My hair was filled with dust and moss and anything else you can imagine from an underground base. She was about to speak, but before she got the chance, Logan stepped in. Not right now, oh, let's just get back. It's been a long day enough already. Logan spoke up, cutting Aurora off from saying anything. All right, but this isn't over, Strom replied while she eyed my clothes with the blood splashes all across me. Placing a hand to her ear, Hank, come in. Yes, they are leaving. We are clear for a pickup. Aurora eyed the group across from us, and as we all looked in that direction, Magneto's giant silver metal disc started to levitate up off the ground and zoomed out of sight heading to wherever they called home. With them gone out of sight, the X-Jet landed with the loading ramp descended, and we got on. The first person I saw as my head got into the plane was the professor. His brows were in a frown, which means he must be having a telepathic conversation with Logan. Well, damn my life, can't I have a break for once? I was not looking forward to having a conversation about my actions down in the base. The professor let out a breath then sighed, which in turn amazed me. I was not expecting to see the man so saddened. Young Mr. Blake, I will have to apologize for what has been allowed to transpire. It saddens me that you have had to go through such an ordeal. Well, what the shit, I was not expecting that from the man. I was prepared for a scolding, yes. I was ready for him to tell me that I can no longer come over on the weekends, yes. I had not expected him to apologize to me of all people. I was so undeserving of this man's apologies. So I had to stop him at all costs, so I interrupted him. Listen here, Professor, it's okay, these things just happen, but I don't blame you or anyone. Only the people that did this. Your school was built as a haven. Others are trying to prey upon your hard work. We are going to have to put a stop to them. Whoever they are. The professor gave me a small smile, then turned to the new person coming up the ramp. Why hello there, young lady, I have been told by one of my teachers that you would like to join us at our institute. The professor spoke to her. Hell, I just realized we don't even know her name. So I faked a cough and then interjected myself again. While scratching the back of my head, I couldn't help but ask, excuse me, but we never got your name after everything was going down. She looked back and forth between myself and the professor, but all he had was a kind smile on his face. That was when she spoke up. My name is Amanda Waller, or you can call me the Wall. She raised her hands and projected multiple reflective panels in the air. While she was doing all that, my mind was short-circuiting because I knew that name. That name belongs to one of the most infamous people of the DC universe. She ran her Suicide Squad. Yeah, talk about worlds colliding. I hope she isn't like that, Amanda Waller. That's excellent. Fascinating abilities. It looks like you are making physical-type constructs. What do you think, Benjamin? Came the professor's voice breaking through my daydreaming. Yep, it looks to me she is creating some psionic construct. I replied to the professor while turning to take a better look at what she created. She had made many small 1 foot by 5 inches of just thin floating psionic walls. I was fascinated by what she was doing, but the nerd in me wanted to look in the cockpit where I could see Dr. McCoy piloting the X-Jet. I turned away from the cockpit and focused more on Amanda, since I'll most likely have a chance to check out the jet later if I asked. So I took myself to one of the window seats. No way was I going to miss the sight during this ride. I looked up after strapping myself in, only to find Storm walking by my position. She stopped for a moment like she wanted to say something to me, but thought better of it, then left for the cockpit. That's strange, she hasn't said much to me since the time she was at the cookout. Honestly, I don't want to be on her wrong side, but no one is perfect. I have been learning that since gaining my powers, even supers are still human at the end of the day. So whatever the situation I was having with her, I'll have to ride it out until it passes, or figure out something that she likes and make peace. Amanda was talking to Professor Moore about herself. She was an orphan, and her parents died when she was young. She lived with her aunt, but the people that took her killed her and snatched her from the car. Damn, That's what you call a tragic origin story, but I held my mouth shut. This was one of those moments where I couldn't just let my mouth run. Now she was coming with us because of my fight with the big furry guy. That comment drew a laugh from Logan over in his seat. Then he decided to open his big mouth. You should have seen it, Chuck. He laid a suplex on old fur face. Laid him out flat. I wish I could be there when he wakes up. Ha, went Logan while leaning back in his seat. And with that, we blasted off back to the mansion. I blocked everything out and finally succumbed to my exhaustion. I was completely unaware as giant blue paws wrapped around me, pulling me out of my seat and then laying me on a softer bed. Nor did I notice the sting of the needle going into my arm. I was lost to the world with dreams of heroship and beautiful women, asking me to kiss their babies. So what do you think about him, Logan? Asked the professor from his location as he watched Dr. McCoy tends to both his patients. I'll admit Sparkles did take down a lot of bad guys, but I can't be the judge to that mess. Here is what I do know from the moments I do have with the kid. He has a good heart. But we have to put it in the right place and help him with an outlet. Otherwise, he is going to create one for himself. Spoke Logan from his spot next to the professor at the view window to the labs. Has anyone noticed his movements are different? It feels like how a predator walks. Asked Storm from her position. Yeah, that might be my doing actually. Spoke up Logan while scratching his beard. What do you mean, Logan? Asked the professor as he turned his chair to face the man. I took Sparky to the danger room to see what kind of skills he has. Well, it turns out his body is learning a lot faster than his head. 'Cause after a few exchanges he was getting better and better. I could feel it with each blow we traded, and I could see his body adapting to the situation faster and faster. I don't even know if the kid realized what was happening. So speed, and that electricity aren't his only powers then? Asked Storm from her side of the professor. No, I believe that might be a secondary reaction happening. I believe that the speed is creating the lightning and that in turn, it's conditioning his body. All that seems to be happening in a loop, continually improving young Benjamin. Came the voice of Dr. McCoy as he exited the lab and joined the conversation. Like a muscle stimulus is what you're saying, right, Hank? Asked Logan with a thoughtful expression. Precisely, but far more advanced. Not only that, but if my scans are correct, Benjamin has a healing factor that's just as advanced or even more so than yours, Logan. Once he reaches his peak physical condition, he will stay like that. His body is already consuming his body fat and building muscle. That should be impossible because of what Logan has told me. Young Mr. Blake hasn't eaten for one whole day, yet his body is producing muscle and has already grown an inch since we last scanned him right before the abduction. Stated Dr. McCoy with a thoughtful look on his face. How about we keep him here for a week? We observe him, and then we decide after that. Offered Storm. Yes, I believe that would be wise, came the professor's reply. With that, the professor shifted his attention to the second person in the lab sleeping on the bed. And what of our young Amanda Waller? Asked the professor. Logan spoke up first this time. From what I can tell, she was down there when we got taken in. Didn't do much when we busted her out. Just stood by herself and observed everyone. Also, when she was speaking to you earlier in the jet, I couldn't smell a lie, nor did she have a skip in her heartbeat. So I think she is clean. All she would need now is a shower and a place to sleep. Her scans also check out. She seems to be not contagious. Her powers do take on a psionic composition to them. So I would recommend we take her in also. Spoke up Hank from his observer's location by the door. Well, all right, I will get in contact with services and see what I can do for her, replied the professor from his chair. You know how some days you feel so tired you could die from exhaustion? Today was one of those days, and so was last week. Today, though, I have been running a mile without pulling on the speed force. Not that I wasn't fit. No, I was before I got my powers. It's just that running miles with hundreds of pounds of weights on your back is a surefire way to die of exhaustion. I couldn't quit because I had the Wolverine behind me doing the same damn thing. And if he could do it, so could I. That was until I was out here doing the same damn thing as him. It seems after my latest adventure, Logan and Hank took an interest in me. Logan was punishing my body, yet Hank was pushing my mind. I was getting battered from both sides, but I refused to give up. They were giving me a chance to maximize my abilities to the fullest, and I wasn't going to quit now because it was hard. I learned my lesson on what happens when I slack off. It is then that the universe decides to kick my butt again, and I refuse to be in a situation like that again. I was studying anything and everything that placed in front of me. I had read so much I started to speed read, and I realized I could begin to go into an auto-capture mode. I went through everything in the library and everything he had in the database. With permanent perfect recall, I was cheating hard. I had rewritten the definition of enhanced genius level intellect with a super photographic memory. And I abused the hell out of it every chance I got, so much so that Hank was making references to his favorite authors and their esoteric works. Since I was the only one that got it, he made a lot of inside jokes. It became dank, and it was so cool. I had also finally made up with Aurora, and it turns out she likes gardening. So I went to collect some rare flowers from the rainforest. It took about 30 tries until she finally smiled at me. Now here I am in the gym training with Logan before I had to leave for home. And yes, I hated him all over again. He talked me into doing the Iron Man challenge without powers, and man did it suck. As much as I was in complaining teenager mode, I know this was good for me. I had noticed my gains after I had awakened. It seemed since I had a healing factor supercharged by the Speed Force, I was always going to be in what was for me at the time peak condition. But I had to put myself in my best possible physical condition first. Otherwise, it was going to take a while to get there, and I was not going to pass up an opportunity to be trained by the Wolverine again. His body was a constant after photo at a gym, and I wanted that for myself. All he did was chuckle at me as I pushed out the last of my 100 set to the Iron Man challenge. One of these days, I'm so going to sabotage his cigars. Fastest man alive, personal hell. So here I was, a beyond Omega level class metahuman, and I was sitting through my hell. I know it's not my very own personal hell since there are plenty of other kids in class with me, but I would like to think so. Especially after the last few weeks I just survived. First, I had to make it through the whole going to the X-Mansion and the kidnapping situation. Then I had to live through a week of grueling workouts with Logan, and then I had to survive Dr. McCoy force feeding me knowledge. I was able to instantaneously absorb, understand, compile, and use it all as my own. Lucky for me, I found the subjects of nanotechnology, engineering, programming, and a few others just tickled my fancy. With Dr. McCoy's help as a sponsor, I was able to get my theory published about increasing the power efficiency in nanotechnology through a collective power distribution system. It only got some recognition from the mad geniuses, but at least I was able to get my name out there for when I make my move. One surprise was finding the theories of one Victor Von Doom. Though it seems he already has a mean hard-on for Reed Richards, since his papers were always belittling the man's intelligence. I also found papers written by Reed Richards. That means that the Fantastic Four is in this universe. But since I haven't heard anything from them would only mean Reed hasn't blown up the labs with his dimensional portal. He has mentioned being on the verge of a breakthrough in his research papers. All that, and here I am forced into this torturous existence called the dreaded Midtown High School. Turning to Pete next to me, "Tell me again, Pete, why must we be subjected to high school?" I asked him with desperation in my voice. Today we were in our shared AP Algebra 2 class. The lights were dimmed, and the class course was supposed to be copied down from the projector. That old ragged AC vent was whistling overhead, so this was the best chance to chat without being found out. Pete was sitting next to me with a confused look, which turned exasperated from my question. Today Peter had on a red flannel over shirt with a school science decathlon shirt under it, completed with a jeans combo. I, on the other hand, was rocking our Midtown High Scientist decathlon sweater, which was lucky for me since I hadn't completed any laundry recently. Yeah, talk about lucky. I was able to find a beautiful loose set of jeans to wear to school too. Still no clue on how to explain to Gwen all that happened later today. I don't know about you, but my aunt and uncle wanted me to go to school regularly, like everyone else, Peter replied to me while his face was scrunched up in his thoughts. Come on, Pete. You can't tell me you haven't thought about blasting through here and just be done with this place? I had to ask him back with pure disbelief in my voice. No, that's not what I mean, Pete replied to me. I had to pause for a moment and let him compose what he wanted to say. Then he spoke up, and I had to pay attention to him since he decided to lean forward and whisper like we were bandits and was conspiring for a bank heist. Honestly, I have been thinking about taking some college courses. I know Uncle Ben told me to wait, but Harry offered me an internship at Oscorp if I can pass a few tests. He whispered into my ears. That, of course, caused me to rock back into my seat because last time I had seen Harry, he had that pompous rich guy bullshit going on. Well, Shitty crap. I know for a fact that this is not a Harry thing, but a Norman Osborn thing, and it seems like he is trying to make a play for Pete. How am I going to navigate this crap? Yeah, I have no clue on how to proceed with this one. How about slowly, I guess? Listen, Pete, I know you're the trusting type and all, but damn. Osborn? Come on, I know you can do better than him and his greaseball of a father. I replied, since that was the only thing I could say to him. Hell, we knew Harry since middle school. We started as friends then, but when Harry realized he could buy people with money, he distanced himself. Granted, I was trying to figure out how to get my hooks in him early. That way, I could get my hands on Oscorp's toys. Why did he have to turn into a little crap once puberty hit? Come on, Ben, don't be like that. He apologized, didn't he? Came Pete's voice, trying to assuage my frustrations about the whole situation. Peter Benjamin Parker, he called us both low-class trash. That's not something you can take back. Come on, buddy, think about it for a minute. Your aunt and uncle have been raising you since you were young. My parents have been raising me since forever. And he just spat on all that. If he said it, he believes it. Yeah, we might be worthy in his eyes in the future, but in his heart of hearts, we are still low-class trash. Hell, I would have accepted the apology more if his dad wasn't there forcing him to say it. Look, I'm not telling you don't do it, because yes, it will better your future. Just be aware you're not selling your future away as you're bettering it. I huffed back at Pete while finishing up my notes. Peter went silent as he finished his notes on problems 6 and 8 from the overhead projector. It was okay, though, because I think I might have gotten my views across to him. Since it was the end of school, I had plans to go to my warehouse and make some science and magic. Peter had brought me a copy of his compiler for research purposes. I also had plans to use that with my code, and I have been writing a personality matrix. Combining those, with some improvements to the system to help them work together more smoothly, and adding a dash of Speed Force magic, I might be able to create something the world has never seen before. I had already figured out at least 35 fixes to the code, with redundancy to make sure I didn't create any Skynet machine, when Gwen came down the hall. Her smile was at least 10 miles wide when she looked at me. Wow, she can always take my breath away. My first instinct was to rush over there, pick her up, bring her back to the warehouse, and French her into next week. Sadly, I was in school, and I can't go super speeding for everyone to see. Until I can get my hooks into the NYC networks, I'll have to keep the speed down. Or at least keep my face covered and move too fast for the cameras. The hallways were their usual uproar, but that didn't deter me one bit. With my super enhanced reflexes and balance, I was moving smoothly and with fluid motions towards my soon-to-be Frenched girlfriend. Her eyebrow quirked up as she watched me approach. Today Gwen was rocking tight jeans, and I know exactly where I am about to place my hands. Accompanying her pair of jeans was a white tank top with a flower that resembled a yellow daisy. As I was looking her up and down, I noticed behind her back was a red sweater hanging out of her handbag. That's an old one I had lost, a red one with a number 23 on the back of the sweater, and I could never find it either. Honestly, Gwen, how many of my sweaters do you have? I couldn't help but ask her as I was pulling closer. While Gwen was entering my embrace, she smiled up at me and answered, I wouldn't know, I got this one as a gift. He was rather handsome and dashing, but he had such an ego I didn't want to return it to him. Gwen replied to me before I sealed her lips with my own. Man, I missed her so much. The rush of vanilla filled my nostrils as our tongues danced back and forth. Then my guilt decided to strike me while I was enjoying myself. My memories of Mystique came back to the forefront of my mind. It's a positive that Mystique wants something from me, and I must warn Gwen about all the mess that's heading our way. Just as I was about to tell her all these things on my mind, we both heard it. A loud crashing sound came from behind me. Turning around, I found Flash with Peter up against the opposite side of the wall. The hallway was deathly silent, with everyone looking at Flash. Today the resident school delinquent was sporting his signature basketball jersey. His arms were also all out and bare for the world to see. Guess he was trying to show off some gains. Man, this guy is just ruining everything. Get up, puny Parker. Your bodyguard's not here to protect you today. Get up. Flash screamed at Peter while everyone was watching. First Gwen looked at what was happening, then she looked at me. Gwen shook her head, then pushed me forward. Well, I guess I'll save his butt again. I can't wait till he gets his powers. I have to talk him into kicking Flash's butt himself. That's going to be so cathartic for him and his self-esteem. I couldn't help the smile that played across my face as I did a smooth glide up behind Flash's back. All Peter did was a smile from his position against the wall. "What are you smiling for, Parker?" asked Flash in a confused state. With that as my cue, I placed my hand on his shoulder and squeezed. You see, Peter and myself happen to be the dynamic duo. He was raised to be kind and to be responsible, I decided to say as the illustrious Flash Thompson began to wince under my grip. I was also raised to be responsible, but I like to ignore the whole kind lesson when it comes to assholes like yourself, Flash. With that, I pulled off an instep while twisting my body and turning him in a full 180, slamming him against the wall with a bang. Flash let out a groan from his new location next to Peter. "See, I bet you didn't like that now, did you?" I asked Flash as he tried to pry my grip from his shoulder. "Get off me, man. I learned my lesson." "Come on, man. I learned my lesson. Let go." Flash started to yell and panic. From my location, I had spotted a teacher turning down the hallway towards us. Figures someone would show up when this dumbass was about to get his butt kicked. Since the teacher was heading our way, I decided to scare him a little bit. I might as well have my fun since I wasn't allowed to kick his ass. "Listen here, Flash. I could have messed your knee up. You could have been ruined for this season. I know you're trying to get into college, and this is your only shot, so I have let you well be you. Since I don't pay much attention to you, let me hear about one more mess up like what just happened. Your whole high school basketball career will be over. Am I being understood?" I hissed out at him as the teacher was approaching closer and closer. When I had said those words, some people's eyes widened around us. "All right, break it up, Mr. Blake." "Mr. Thompson, is anything going on here?" asked Ms. Maya Dean, our AP Physics teacher. "No, we are all fine here, Ms. Maya Dean," replied Peter, speaking up first. I just nodded my head at her while I eyed Flash. When I raised an eyebrow at him, he finally decided to speak up. "Yeah, teach, we're good. I gotta go to practice anyway," spoke Flash as he decided to hightail it out of the hall. With that, everyone decided to head home or go to after-school activities. I planned to take Gwen back to the warehouse and do a few things to help further my goals. Maybe I'll do a whole make-out session first. Yeah, that. I can always just super speed everything else. "Come on, you big goof, we have things to do," Gwen spoke up while helping Peter pick up his bags. While fixing his bag, Peter gave me a look, then asked, "You are not going to do any of that, right?" The way he looked at me was odd. "Believe it, bud. No one messes with my people and gets away with it scot-free," was all I said to Peter as we left the building. Peter never said anything as he got on the bus. That was fine anyway, and he had his thing to deal with. Since I had no plans to rush him or force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. I don't even have any plans to play the evil voice in his ear. With Peter gone, I did a fast turn to Gwen and smiled at her. "Hey babe, I missed you lots," I told her as she handed me her bag. "Yeah, I can tell from the way you paid no attention to anyone else and made a beeline straight for me," Gwen replied while smiling up at me. With her bag secured on my back, I picked up Gwen, and we got out of there. No honking cars, no garbage odors, nothing. It was so peaceful while going super speeds. All that was available was blissful silence. Gwen was in my arms, smiling as she enjoyed the sights. We passed by neon signs blending together with cars frozen in time. Even the birds looked frozen to us in their mid-flight movements. Looking down at Gwen, I couldn't help but go for another kiss. "I'm happy you brought me along. I thought you were going to go off on your own and have fun without me," stated Gwen with a quirk of her cute eyebrows. "Nope, not after the little adventure that I just went through. I have plans to keep it a small-time thing for now," I replied to Gwen as we cruised past a frozen cop mid-bite of his donut. After taking a look at the cop with his donut, I figured, what the hell? I'm sure Gwen is hungry. She just hasn't said anything about it. Most likely because she was excited to get me back and just forgot. Who knows these things? With a solid burst of speed, I brought Gwen through a bodega. We grabbed some snacks, and I dropped a 20 on my way out. That should cover everything. With a swift turn around a corner, we headed off towards the warehouse for our little fun. And then I'll get my chance to do my mad genius bit for a while. Let's just hope I don't blow up the city. Who am I kidding? With my luck recently, that might happen. With a look at Gwen as we approached the warehouse, I hoped to speed force that doesn't happen. Now we were about a block out from our spot, so with a move, I started up the wall. That caused Gwen to squeal out as we moved from a straight horizontal position to a vertical one going straight up the building wall. Gwen turned to me to give me what she thought was a glare. All she could pull off was a fierce little pout. With a smile playing across my lips, I leaped. Well, it was honestly more of a hop and a step, yet what happened next caused Gwen to hang her mouth open wide with shock. How are you doing this? She asked me. That's the look I wanted on her face, the awe and grandeur at the wonder of the world. It's simple yet complex. With the energy coming off of me, I can use it to grab the air and create a pressure pocket. Its use is to create an air road to run on. I discovered this during one of my little training sessions. It's not flying, but I'll figure it out one of these days, was my reply to Gwen while thinking about the glide I pulled off into Sabertooth chest. The ideas for running on the air came from my reflections on Naruto and Bleach. I found some things similar, then tried a combination, and I got it to work just fine. Although, I plan to put some time into figuring out flight though. With that out of the way, I brought us down on the roof of the warehouse while I brought us back to standard time speed. That caused Gwen to let out a very exasperated sound at me. So what? You keep popping up with new abilities? She asked from her position, still in a princess-style carry. With a chuckle, I replied to her in full, not really, it's still the same power, I'm just figuring out more creative ways to use it. It would seem I got energy manipulation with the Speed Force. So I thought it was best I start being more creative. Yeah, I was still mad at myself for not figuring phasing out sooner. I even didn't know the damn shaking like that messes me up something fierce. I at least figured out some other uses though, and I was planning on sharing one of my favorites later. With a huff, Gwen maneuvered out of my arms and walked over to a clean two-person love seat, which had a magnificent view of the river. Yeah, that was a total win idea. Bringing the love seat up here yesterday, but I am pretty sure I wasn't the one that turned it towards the river. That might have been Alan. Yeah, I'll have to thank him for this later. With Gwen huffing at me, I carried our bags over next to the seat. So are you going to tell me about the last 2 weeks now? I noticed you have been acting different, and your flow of motion is smooth. Like extremely smooth. It's like you're just gliding across the ground now, said Gwen with a cute little huff. Yeah, this conversation might be somewhat rough. So with my exasperated sigh, I took a seat right next to her. Gwen used that as a sign and leaned into my chest. With this, I leaned back into the chair and took one long look over the bay before us. Man, where do I even start? I let out my breath. Why not the beginning? Gwen replied while treating me as a pillow. Well, I guess that's one way to start a story. So with some brogue to my voice to cover the sad feelings I was having from dredging up the memories, I began my tale. While sitting with Ben on a seat watching the bay, Gwen was listening to his tales of his previous week's adventures. Gwen had to wonder how she got to where she was today. He was so unlike anyone she ever met before. Since they were at the age of 8 when they first met at a policeman's cookout, she had always liked him because of his fanciful, adventurous tales. He had such stories of men flying in the air with capes on their backs. Even that one Ben loved to talk about calling himself the Batman, just those stories alone had already endeared her to him. Then came the moment she realized she was a genius compared to all the other kids in school. Benjamin had told her that weekend, so what if they are mean? Everyone's mean. But that doesn't have to equate to blasting past the grades like her parents wanted to get out of the situation. He had told her to learn from it, get stronger, and that these years were her best opportunity to learn social skills. That leaving because she wasn't happy would cause her to be ostracized even more with being in a class with adults. Just like that, she decided to stay at the school with the rest. That same summer break, he introduced her to his other friend Peter Parker. It turns out he was also having the same issues that Gwen was, but unlike her parents, his guardians wanted him to stay so that he can have friends his age. With that, she also noticed that as goofy as he was, Benjamin was always responsible. Now she sat here in his arms as he told her about some lady with all white hair and blue eyes that was mad at him for not just going with the status quo. Yeah, that's her Ben, all right, always the different one. Then he talked about some blue lady that was giving him hot eyes of interest. A blue lady, huh? Gwen wondered if she was like the elves of those Lord of the Rings movies. She couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to kiss them, to feel such supple lips on her own. Gwen wanted to know. She was positive Benjamin had an interest in both of the ladies. She noticed how his eyes did that slight upturn like when he looks at her or food, and he even had that goofy grin on his face. She knew she liked other women, but yet she was so nervous about sharing her big goofball. He was hers, and even if she wanted to add a girl to her life, she didn't know if she had it in her to share him. Then Gwen heard how Ben was trapped on a table with someone trying to cut him open. Gwen's heart clenched. That was not what she was expecting her Benjamin to tell her. Ben's voice took on a somber tone as he revealed his actions of killing not only the guy cutting him open, but also destroying the base in his evident anger of the situation. She sat there speechless at these revelations. I felt so much better now that I finally told Gwen all that has happened to me. It was a strange thing how she always just listened to me even when I told her about some out-of-this-world craziness. Here she was silent next to me, trying to absorb all that had transpired. Gwen started by slowly turning to look at me, then she just hugged me. Talk about throwing me off my game for a bit. Gwen always was proper with everything. Instead of freaking out, she is trying to comfort me. Shit, why does she have to be so kind to me? With the barrier gone between us, I couldn't help but pick her up onto my lap and give her a massive hug back. Next thing I knew, her lips found mine, and I knew that everything was going to be alright. She didn't even have to tell me it was okay. The look and kiss she gave me said it all. She smiled at me and shattered my world. So tell me more about this blue elf lady you're so smitten with, and that other one called Storm. Gwen spoke while looking at me with her sly cat caught the canary grin. Okay, that threw me for a full loop and caused my brain to shut down. I told you she works for that helmet guy who calls himself Magneto, was my reply until my mind was able to catch up to the situation. She completely ignored all that. So when she was giving you the bedroom eyes, did you check her out also? Gwen asked while moving around in my lap. That was a straight trap, and I should not answer it. Nope, I refused to enter such an easy trap was all that was going through my mind. Yet, as Gwen slowly ground on my lap, I was betrayed by my body. All she did was look at me while my massive hard-on just poked her. So I decided to give in and give her some answers. I did take a look, but I can promise you that all hands were kept to myself, Gwen. I spoke up resolutely while she did a slow back and forth on my lap. I wonder if you would like to see two Gwens kissing? Gwen asked me with a tilt of her head while turning to press those voluptuous breasts of hers into me. This was all straight torture. But right then I finally couldn't take it anymore and rolled her over onto the couch so I could give her the ravishing she had called down upon herself. Kriek. That damn warehouse roof door popped open, and out from it came Alan. All I could scream in my mind was crap. Damn it, why couldn't he have waited just a little longer? What a schlong block. Gwen decided to huff at me, then give me a saucy look, and that's when I'd had it. A super speed hickey was delivered before she had the chance to squirm away from our positions. Alan started with an, "Oh crap kid, my bad, didn't know you both were going to have some fun," he stated while making a U-turn back into the warehouse. Don't worry about it, Gwen spoke up while trying to push me to the ground, but I was prepared for her little stunt. With some very impressive reflexes and speeds, I repositioned us to where she was on top, and I looked like I was pinned down under her. That got a laugh out of her as she looked at the new positions. Gwen ground into my pelvis one last time, then got up to face Alan, asking him why he came up here. You came up for the view, right? Gwen asked while looking at Alan. Today he wore his fading army jacket and old pants. I've never seen him wear any medals, but he always had stories when I came around to help some of the homeless. His past army experience is why I let him hold any of the cash I give to buy the others food. This man in front of me is as loyal as they come, and it always pains me to realize he is homeless. Well, he is a lot less homeless now that we took over this warehouse by the bay. We heard you guys through the roof window there, Alan spoke up while pointing to the open overhead hatch window behind us. I figured since you kids were here, I might as well tell Ben. We collected all the car batteries we could scavenge for him, replied Alan. That perked me up from my position on the couch. You guys got all 50 batteries? I couldn't help but ask in my excitement. Yeah, kid, it's the least we could do. We also picked up some of the monitors and keyboards you asked for, came Alan's calm reply. What do you want that stuff for, Ben? Gwen asked me while I was grinning like a total loon in my excitement. Gwen, you're about to witness the birth of a supercomputer. Oh, and hopefully a fully functional AI, was my excited reply since I was now riding a different high. Wait a second there, you big doofus. How in the blazes do you plan to build a supercomputer with junk and a functioning AI like you just stated? All you have is junk here in the warehouse. Gwen asked in confusion. Even Alan shared the same befuddled look on his face. Oh yeah, I asked Terry to keep an ear to the ground about Oscorp moving any specialty computer servers when we go in, and if he has an answer. That is positive. I plan to snatch to my heart's content. Your super speed boyfriend is going to build the craziest rig you can imagine. You're telling me this is another one of your crazy plans, she asks, turning around to pin me where I stood. Yeah, I know that look. It's the, you're a second from getting a pinched look. Gwen, it's not going to explode, not this time, I promise, was my immediate reply to Gwen's look. Yeah, I can heal super fast, but her pinches hurt like shit. So I didn't want one, even if I would heal right after. With that, she turned around and left for the workshop part of the warehouse. You got yourself a strong one there, kid. Don't let her go, Alan spoke up from his location by the door after witnessing Gwen and my little by-play. Yeah, she is spicy all right, I replied to the man with my face splitting into a smile. And just so you know, Terry did get the information on those computer parts you had an ear out for. Alan decided to tell me since Gwen was now out of earshot. When he told me that, I waited no longer and rushed into the workstation and Gwen. My workspace in the warehouse. It was so glorious it took my breath away. In one corner was all the car batteries I wanted and some more. In the middle were old computer parts, and on the right was all the keyboards, mice, and monitors I would need. I know all this wouldn't be enough though. I needed to get my hands on those Oscorp computer parts. I figured Norman would be up to shady crap, and since I had myself an in with the homeless population, they could easily be the feelers I needed out there to find the labs. I was not disappointed knowing that Terry had found Norman's little hiding spots. Now I can get all kinds of lab equipment and computers for free with the information given to me by Terry. I had 2 of Norman Osborn's shady experimental bases to hit. With a thought, I was off running, and boy was it such a liberating feeling for me. I didn't realize how stuffed up I felt all day. Now that I was running across the city, it felt like I had my release from all that pent-up feeling. I was across the Lower East Side of Manhattan within an eye blink. I had all the confidence in the world that no one was about to witness what I was about to do. Just imagining the look on Norman's face tomorrow when he found out someone stole all his goodies. So priceless. If I had $1 million, I would pay it just for the picture of his slimy, greasy, pockmarked-filled, surprised face. I quickly came upon the backside of the brown and gray building of which Terry spoke. I couldn't help but take a look around. The building was located in a part of town where no one asked questions, period. Everyone saw everything and nothing all at once. With my first lap around the block, I hadn't noticed anything strange, but on my second pass I noticed all the hard power lines for massive power draw. This situation was a clear sign I was in the right place. With this in mind, I ran up the building side when I spotted an open window. This maneuver was going to be one move in skill and ability that could have gone down in the history books. Running up the building, I did a sliding twist feet first maneuver into the building. I was going so fast I almost clipped my shin on the windowsill. The guy at the window never even saw me coming. While working my way through the room, I caught a glimpse of what I needed. One supermassive server rack filled to the brim with all the latest goodies. I had to be careful. Norman was smart, crazy smart, so I had to check to GPS triggers and the like. Before I could even start my new hobby as a professional thief, I noticed my reflection. I laughed as I came to the realization I had forgotten my damn tools. I ran out here with no screwdrivers, nothing. Not even a mask to cover my face. Shit. I jumped the gun again. Hell, I could have made my Speed Force constructs to include myself. These realizations caused my frustration levels to rise, but I had to push all that aside as I ran down to the maintenance rooms to take some tools so I could get my hands on all Norman's goodies. That pulled me up short. Oh gosh, no, not his goodies. I just wanted his tech for my own so that I can build badass shit for my immediate plans. When I found the maintenance room, I busted through the door like I was the Kool-Aid man. Oh yeah. What I found was wall-to-wall tools. I was so happy my face split open into one massive grin because now I could get to the jog of liberating all the loot. I started by grabbing the nearest bag, then stuffing it with ratchet sets, a pair of bolt cutters, and a matching set of flathead and Phillips head screwdrivers. Making a U-turn up the walls, I ran along with the ceiling, then across the walls, and back down onto the ground, heading to the first floor. I might as well start somewhere. Fastest man alive speed heist, so here I was heading down the elevator shaft to the basement. I had to make this fast. A speed heist can't be a speed heist if I take forever and a day. I have the tools, and I also found the server racks that I will need. All that was necessary now was a databank, power couplings, and a few other goodies and knickknacks. Cutting a turn at the floor and busting through the door like I was the Kool-Aid man, it was on. I came upon Christmas in February because it was 4 storage banks of nothing but petabytes of storage. These are all now mine. Running up to them, I checked all my tools to make sure that I had the right wrenches and a few screwdrivers. With speeds that no one could even see, I was off with a blink. The whole data storage was separated down to just its parts hanging around me in the air as I disassemble them. Doing all this was so cool. Everything was free floating in the air due to the speeds at which I was moving. Nothing could keep up with me. With the databank all disassembled, I had gotten my hands on 600 specialized hard drives of nothing but free storage. Now it was time for everything to go. Pulling on the ropes I found in the Oscorp storage rooms, I made sure to wrap it all up and tie it all to me. I then spread the speed force along my path. With another turn, I was out of that first subsection of the basement. While speeding back to my little secret warehouse, I was able to tug all the data storage units with me. Why use hands when you have rope and imagination? Creativity for the win. After setting all the stolen loot down, it was time to blast back to Oscorp's secret labs. Next was Subbasement 2, which had another holy grail secret hidden away, a 2 meters tall, robust power storage unit. And man, was this thing advanced. From the look and feel of the power stored within, this thing could run the whole building for a month with nothing but backup power. I wanted it, but damn, it was so damn huge. Where there is a will, there's a way. Running up to it, I ran my hands alongside it, then increased the vibrations. I couldn't do this at average speeds because I needed no one to know I was here except for my people. But the clue was sharing my aura with Gwen, and when I time-trapped that doctor and killed him. Using the aura shield that my body generated, I was able to loosen the screws and set about dismantling the power supply storage. With a twist and a wiggle of my hands, all the parts of the storage were dismantled and scattered around in the air. This heist was going just great. Got myself one large server rack and now got my hands on a next-generation power storage device. No one can call me a thief if no one can prove I did it. No matter how gleeful that made me, I had to keep focused. Since I am in Marvel and Norman Osborn is into shady dealings, that means he has to have had the OZ serum. And since this is the closest of his labs, it would be in this one or a secret lab inside the Osborn Towers. Well, let's just split 22 and hope it's only in these labs. Since he does have a posting on the site about the spiders, my hope against all hope is I'll find it here. A guard was frozen in his mid-stride exiting out of some lab-labeled armor and weaponry. My teenage heart couldn't help but scream jackpot. So many goodies are going to be all mine, and no one will be able to stop me. Paying the guard no mind, I took off running up the wall, then across the ceiling and through the door behind him. What I found was enough to cause a Spider-Man fan's wet dreams. It seems Norman was keeping tabs on Otto because on the far wall was a copy of the infamous octopus arms. The arms had connections to a spinal stabilizer and one massive waist-hugging connector clamp. Even from my position running into the room, I can tell that the needles used to connect the neural pathways were extremely sharp. Had to give Dr. Otto some props for using this damn thing, and even more to his wife for going along with that man's mad genius and allowing him to put this thing on. Yeah, these arms were now leaving with me. My mind was alive with all the upgrades I could do to this thing. I also had to make a note to myself to make sure that the neural connectors got replaced with something else that's a lot less likely to fuse to anyone's spinal neural pathways. Yeah, having anyone use this thing till that significant flaw was fixed would not end well. With my full 360-degree inspection of the mechanical limbs, I was sure they could be liberated. That device was then zoomed to my warehouse. While running down the road, both of the GPS devices were removed and placed onto a cab and a car as I passed by. I dropped off the limbs next to the disassembled power storage device and the server rack, gave Gwen a hyperspeed kiss and ran back to the armory of goodies. Running back in the arsenal, I looked over the guns, but they were just the standard military carbines, so they didn't even get a second glance from me. Yeah, I'll have to take a crate with ammo on my way out, but that's just regular old guns. What had my interest right now was the crate that was being currently dismantled by a group of guys. Rushing over to them, I couldn't help but take a peek to see what they were getting out of the crate. And my gosh, it was beautiful. They had the Hobgoblin glider from Spider-Man 3, and I wanted it. I wanted it so badly, I smashed the leading security guy out of the way and snatched it up. This thing was as sleek as a snowboard, and in the middle it had two advanced motors running what had to be modular flight stabilizers. Under the bottom, it had a rotating rocket booster that was able to turn in a 360-degree arc. On both ends it had a three-pronged set of mini-jet boosters. Yeah, this was so not going to stay in Norman's hands. Mine. Mine. And more mine. Mwahahaha. With the final checks over the glider, I was off back to my warehouse like a manic kleptomaniac. With some more manic enthusiasm, I rushed back to the secret labs hoping to find more goodies. This first heist was turning into the most significant windfall ever. Not only was I able to get my hands on some good tech, but I was also able to get my hands on copies of future friends or foes' tech. Now all that's left is to take some carbines, since they had nothing else of interest to me and my future goals. With 2 crates secured for my warehouse, I also had to round up at least 500,000 rounds. That should keep Alan happy till we can snatch some more ammo or we can buy it all legally. Next was communications, and for that, I had to find the communications hub. I was here to rob Norman blind, and there was no way I was going to go on city patrols with just a walkie-talkie and nothing else. Rushing up to a wall map with that thought in mind, I noticed they even had "You Are Here" star on the map. That gave me a chuckle. Whoever made this thing had a sense of humor. Lucky for me, the communications hub was on the 2nd floor directly next to where all the power was coming in. That set my fingers to tingling. The only reason Norman would even think of putting a communications hub in a spot that can easily be overloaded is if he had his supercapacitors that are being used in the city grid, busting into the room like the Kool-Aid Man again. Oh yeah. I looked at the holy grail of communications before me. The monitors were all connected to a next-gen communications relay. It didn't even look like a switchboard at all. It had relays and switches with a panel for viewing that looked like it was already hooked into all radio types across the city. I'll have to scrub and format till the cows come home. I might have to replace a few parts that are capable of taking it down to be safe. Pulling off the headsets of the crews operating the station, I left and went to my warehouse and back within the same nanosecond. With the headsets already at my warehouse, it was time to dismantle the wall of tech. Going back to the communications room, I took everything that wasn't bolted down. The desk, keyboards, monitors, even the power strips weren't able to hide from my clutches. With my new mad idea of powering my new system with the Speed Force, I needed to find those supercapacitors to get my systems going. My powers were already running on the best type of juice in the universe, so I'll have to make something to share the power. A mad cackle was released out of my mouth when I started to dismantle the communications array and bring it back to my warehouse. That stumped me for a bit. Gosh, hope I wasn't losing my mind. That would suck going mad after making it this far. With a shrug, I decided that ignorance was best. Everything was taken. The only thing left in the room was the metal grate on the far wall. I had noticed it with all the cables and wires coming out of it. The people operating their stations as a job were safe for now. There was no need or justification to rob the people that were doing their jobs. I had chosen to ignore them. What I was hoping to find behind that metal grate was the Holy Grail. Man, was I having too much fun with this. Now I understood why the Black Cat and Catwoman stole so much. It was fun and slightly addicting. I had to make sure I took everything. With super speed, I dragged my hands across the panel, yanking it down to reveal what had to be millions of dollars in Oscorp tech, and I was going to take it all. Supercapacitors, with wirings, control modules, everything one would need to run a power setup like this was here and lined with what had to be a state-of-the-art cooling system. Shit, I almost forgot that I'd need to build a cooling system for everything, even the server room. Otherwise the heat is going to be just crazy off the charts. Just taking a look at what Oscorp had built in front of me gave me ideas. I am pretty sure Mr. Freeze used a version of cryogenic freezing for his tech. With just that thought alone, I had 3 new schematics of ideas and improvements that would keep my systems at sub-zero temperatures. Also have to make a note not to let anyone get electrocuted while near the tech. Don't want anyone just suddenly showing up with ice powers. Well, maybe if I find a safe way to administer it, possibly make a few for special operations. Everything was liberated. I even took the wires and bolts this time. Pretty positive that none of this is available to me back in my warehouse. After double-checking to make sure I didn't forget to take out any GPS locator chips, I rushed back to my warehouse, dumped my load, kissed Gwen again, and rushed back to the gold mine that was Norman Osborn's secret labs. Taking a glance at the building map from my position, running along the ceiling to make sure I was heading in the right direction, I shot off down into the basement labs for what I hoped was the last item on this little heist of mine. Blasting out of the stairwell, I noticed the labs down the hall on my left. During a mid-stride, though, I saw of a room of guards trying to hold down a man that looked to be screaming at them. Yeah, I was in the right place, alright. This guy was taking on at least 12 guards that looked like it was their job was to subdue him. That crazed look on his face was a clear indication to tell me that the Oz serum was not only here in the labs, but it was also far from being a viable option. Maybe Gwen would like to play around it to see if she can solve the issue. From my thoughts on the matter, I knew Norman refuses to lower the enhancements. Those enhancements go hand in hand with a mental breakdown in patients. Fixing that would, I hoped at least, fix the issue. Since Gwen's whole wheelhouse is biochemistry, I leave all that to her. In the lab they had 6 small bottles of the stuff. Guess I'll only take 3 for Gwen. I lucked out here because not only did they have what I needed, but they also had a model of the serum up on the screen. Ha! Perfect recall for the win. This I'll have to reproduce for Gwen once all the systems are up and running. Pretty positive that she is going to have a field day with all this. While being here, I might as well grab her a few things though. Oh great. They have beakers, lab equipment, and even one state-of-the-art centrifuge. I took everything, and I also took some of the lab coats. Yes, I was going to start my hero career on Osborn's dime, and I had no remorse or shame or care in the world. Michael always considered himself an elite amongst elites. He took pride in that fact, and he ran his job with that kind of mentality. Not many people can say they were chosen by boss Norman Osborn himself. He picked him for the head of security, a position for which he was born. He always made sure he ran this lab with the best of the best, like himself. All the guards were from the best the company had to offer. Like Gomez, for example, he won multiple awards for martial arts from company competitions, so he had to have him. He also had to have Nicolos, since he was a notable marksman. Michael made sure he had the guy that could shoot and the guy that could kick ass. So it was extremely frustrating for him when something invisible shoved him out of the way and stole all the gear he was charged to guard. Everything that wasn't secured down was gone. Hell, even a few bolts were gone. He was going to get this asshole if it was the last thing he did. He had a savage grin when he headed to his locker, and another Gomez was yelling something, freaking out. They didn't know he had taken the initiative to mark the gear with GPS, and it was about to pay off. With a savage grin, Michael pressed the button to activate the GPS responders. Yeah, he couldn't wait to see the look on that bastard's face when he smashed down the door and kicked his face. Michael's grin was wiped off his face as he watched all 36 of the devices responding from all over the city. Locations were showing from Lower East Side Manhattan to the far side of Queens. How in all hell was he going to explain this to his boss now? That even his backup tracker plan couldn't help. Gwen had no clue on what to expect from this day. One moment they were in school with Ben defending Peter again, and the next moment, Ben was telling her about being kidnapped. Not only that, but he was also taken to some secret base. Then he told her about having to kill his way out of that same base. That was all so surreal for Gwen. The next thing she knew, Alan told him about some shady secret base that Norman Osborn seems to be running. That caused Ben to run off with his goofy grin before she even had a chance to ask him what was it all about. Before she could even stop him, he was gone within an instant before she could also show her frustration with everything. Ben was back, kissing her, and the warehouse was full of so many parts it was maddening. Gwen had enough of this. With a huff she separated from him and walked over to where she saw what looked to be genetics lab equipment. Ben came up beside her and she grabbed him by his collar and pulled him down to her height. Damn tall bastard played through her mind as she decided to give him a piece of it. Listen here, you tall doofus. Explain yourself now. Where did all these things come from, and what was Alan talking about when he said Harry's dad had some secret lab? Gwen asked her soon-to-be dead boyfriend cause for the first time. Yes, she was contemplating hurting him a lot. With a massive grin on my face, I zoomed back into my base of operations, my warehouse. I was looked over all my goodies for my massively successful heist, and then ran to finish that kiss with Gwen. I was in for a rude awakening because the next thing I knew she pulled away, stormed off towards the medical equipment, and then grabbed me and yelled in my face. Then she had my head down to her height. I just wanted to kiss that face again. She was angry but looked so damned adorable. Gwen had to be handled with care because I knew that look. Her next move is going to go for my ear or take a chunk of flesh with a pinch. And I refused to be on the end of that, period. So like any superpowered boyfriend, I did what we all do, and I caved. My epic caving into her demands was fast and complete. No way can I have my main genetics hottie girlfriend upset at me. That and Captain Stacy has a lot of large guns and cops he would have no problem using on me. Calm down first please Gwen, I'll tell you what's going on. I replied to her in a hurry before she decided it would be a good idea to pinch my cheeks. Oh yeah, Alan, come over here, you would like to hear what I have to tell you, and also bring Terry with you. I stated to the man while he was off chuckling at my misfortune. Everyone's a blasted traitor nowadays, geez, no loyalty at all. With everyone on my list of importance, I decided to let them in on half of what I planned for the future. So as you bunch of misfits all know, I gained my own set of powers recently with the lovely Gwen Stacy's help. I had to make sure I buttered her up some. I would want to kiss her later, and not have her decide it would be a good teaching opportunity by biting me a few times. Now that I am thinking about it, that might be interesting. She does let out a few cute moans when I go for the neck. I plan to use my powers and do the whole hero thing, but I do have goals with the whole hero thing, I told them. You're going to get yourself hurt again. Came Gwen. Talk about ouch and going for the knife. Being a hero pays like nothing, kid. Stated Terry from his position at a desk. I figured you were up to something like that. Do you have a plan at least, kid? Spoke up Alan from his position, leaning up against the wall. Well, for Gwen, that's why I have plans for more training with my skills, so don't worry there. And yet, Terry, I know heroes don't get paid anything. Also, who said I wasn't going to get myself some money along the way? And thank you, Alan, for sticking by me. I let out at them with a huff, which in turn caused both Gwen and Terry to sit up. They had such vivid attention on me, it was eerie. Figures Terry would perk up at the mention of money. It was Gwen who spoke up first. Does this whole training thing also include the whole walking on air? She asked me with a dazed smile on her face now. Ugh, yeah, it does actually, I replied to her. Wait, walking on air? Asked both Terry and Alan. With that as a prompt, I decided why not let's show off. With a twist, I was running up the walls. Flipping off the wall, I focused the speed force more into my legs and less all over my body. Alan's jaw dropped as I stood there before them, both a good 5 feet off the ground. Terry was the first to speak up from his spot, standing in front of the desk. How are you even pulling that off? Simple, yet not so simple. My body is producing massive amounts of energy. And one of my abilities is energy manipulation. So all this electricity you see as a discharge? I am using it to grab hold of the molecules in the air, creating a pressure pad I can stand on. What I failed to share with them was that I was also running all the calculations for this little move. Talk about a workout that keeps on giving. Don't you guys worry, I have plans to help you all gain powers. I like to think of myself as a guy who follows some of the rules on the evil overlord list, okay? With that admittance, everyone tilted their heads as if they had never heard of such a thing. So all I could do is huff at them. Fine. One of the rules I stand by is that if I can have power, then share it with the rest, because you never know when someone will target your allies. That is the current rule I am going to use, was my statement to the rest. So how would all of you don't mind me and let me build up this sick computer and the server racks? I asked with as much pleading in my voice as I could muster. So many parts were in front of me, and I was dying to put it all together. With that I was off within a blink. First was setting up the server racks in the basement. Man, I had hit the jackpot. Norman had sprung for the goodies, and I got my hands on his zettabyte drives. I was able to lift all 20 of the hard drives, and I planned to put them to good use. Now that the server was all set up, it was time to set up Gwen's lab right next to my workstation. From there, with a turn and a blitz, I was back in the warehouse basement. I had to set up and organize all the batteries, but I had gotten my hands on one of Norman's state-of-the-art next-gen battery storage devices. These things could power any 3-story-sized building for up to a month by itself. And it was all mine. That made me giddy. After the batteries were all set, I had a whole communications array that I needed to put together. Then I had a whole bunch of superconducting cables to wire all over the place. With all the wiring in place, it was time I ran myself to the junkyard. I had to salvage some copper, freon, and a bunch of fins to build heat sinks to filter all the heat that was about to be produced once this all starts up. While in the junkyard, it came to my notice that I had no way to transfer my electricity into the batteries other than to grab hold and funnel it that way. Yeah, this won't do at all. That was when I noticed it, a rundown-looking Swift Motor 4000, right there laying on its side with the top all broken. Maybe I should have gone to the professor or maybe Dr. McCoy and asked for help, but it wasn't time for them to know what I was doing. I also didn't need them to be aware of what my plans are for my powers. Come to remember, while Logan and Dr. McCoy were grilling me all week, he didn't ask me anything about how it all affected me. Now that I think more on the subject, I am happy he didn't ask me. There is just too much going on up in my head at the moment to share with that man in particular. With my musing, I had cleaned up the Swiftmaster and brought it back to the warehouse. Next, I located some older air conditioning units, 5 still intact. I rushed everything back to the warehouse. All I needed now was copper for heat sinks. The next stop was the recycling plant over in Jersey. My timing was perfect because a metal bins truck was heading in, and I noticed a large bin with nothing but copper. Yes, talk about getting a win today. Let's take the whole container. Yeah, no way will they be able to miss these lovely babies. Plus the copper is far better used in my own hands. Don't they know I am trying to build a supercomputer with junk parts and advanced parts? It's going to be my own little Frankenstein. Mwahahaha. The container in tow, I blasted back to my little section of Hell's Kitchen. Not only did I now have a treadmill to transfer my electricity through, but I also now had the parts needed to build proper heat sinks and help keep my systems all nice and cool. With my new plans in mind, it was time to build that cryogenics tech I was mulling over while in Norman's secret labs. Gwen couldn't help but huff as Ben shot out of the lab. With his newfound powers, he can be ridiculous. That's for some other time, though, because he had said something about sharing power, but she was very aware he had no plans to share his current skills with her. Not that she blamed him, because she was not willing to be blasted with super cosmic lighting, as he likes to call it. No, what she wants is to be able to fly. When Ben had taken her into the air, she knew that's what she wanted. Yeah, to fly and some strength also. While Gwen was mulling that over, she had noticed that Ben had placed down a pad on one of the new desks. On top of the office desk was 3 small bottles of green liquid with a note under it which read, "Hey Gwen, this is a neat little thing I found in those labs. Roughly 3 pages in you will discover I redrew the whole molecule that they had up on the monitors. Do be careful, it tends to make anyone who drinks it to go crazy. The serum is all yours to enjoy. That's why I brought you a lab to call your own." Now Gwen realized she couldn't be all angry with the big doofus. He didn't forget to bring her some toys to play with. So she decided to let him off the hook this time to play with her new mutagenic fluids. With that last run, I had everything hooked up. The communications array was connected to outside antennas and dishes, but not connected to the power source. That way, it does not give away our location without us having a chance to reset the whole system. The power source was all connected to the Swift Master, yet the switch hasn't been flipped. Everything was covered with my cooling racks. The superconductors and the supercapacitors were all set and ready for the blast of energy about to be sent their way. Now all I needed was my genius girlfriend to run all the systems and run the operating systems that are going to be the foundations for the AI that I was working on over at the X-Mansion. Looking around, I found Gwen in her section of the workstation at her little lab that was now a real lab with all came from Osborn's secret lab and his pocket. This was not something I can trust Alan with, and she was all busy going mad scientist with her stuff. Since Gwen was busying herself with that, I decided to go put away the glider and Dr. Otto's octo-arms. Man, these things are so bloody cool. And then there is the prototype glider. I can't wait to take this thing apart and see what type of fuel it uses. Pretty sure it had a long flight time for something so small, otherwise Norman wouldn't have made a copy and kept it for his use. The side items had to be shifted to a more secure location, and I made sure to warn Alan about how dangerous these new toys were. Now it was time to put the mad genius cap on and run some life into the new computer systems. Norman Osborn has always considered himself to be a genius and a visionary. He was always at the forefront of science and technology, no matter the cost. Norman also prided himself in building his company from the ground up. He only felt it was fair that the universe set upon him a failure of a son. It wasn't his fault he was given a son with no skills to make his own. He, Norman Osborn, was just too much of a genius, and this was the natural balancing of the universe at work. Yes, that was a sad discovery. Yet that paled in comparison to what he discovered today. Someone had not only located his labs but dared to rob him. His first conclusion was to confront Fisk about this, but Norman had a chance to review the camera footage, and this was not Fisk's doing. One moment the equipment was there, and the next everything was gone. They had violated the secrecy of his labs and stole away his research under his nose. The only saving grace in all this was finding out he had such a capable head of security. Norman can always use such a loyal man in his experiments. The fastest man alive. Alfred. So here I was all ready to activate the next step in my plans. Building a supercomputer, then fit it with a custom personality codex, information compiler, and the upgraded codes I have been working on since my visit to the X-Mansion. Before I knew it, Gwen was off doing her own thing. Yeah, that frustrated me, but I can't blame her. It's all my fault for giving her advanced biogenetic research and the mutagen that goes along with it. Yeah, I was asking to be ignored, all right. Now all I had for my helpers were Alan, an old man military veteran, and Terry, a washed-up businessman who lacked the common sense to get a prenup. His wife took everything from him. I took a look at Gwen, who had a bright smile on her face, then turned to my little grunt force and went with them. It would do me no favors to put myself between her and her fun. And I can always relegate them to only pressing simple buttons. Now that I am thinking about it, this would go so much better if I used a standing desk around myself on the Swiftmaster treadmill. It wouldn't do if they mess it all up and blow the systems. Yeah, I'll have to do that and have them flip the big switches for power and server access. So I zoomed back over to the dumps to find some standing desks. Otherwise, I'll have to wait like a puppy until Gwen's finished because I don't trust the other guys not to mess up my current plans. I will soon have to give them tasks that suit their abilities. Ugh, some super powerful Omega mutant, and I am digging through the damn dump again. While grumbling and moving at high speeds, I was able to locate the 3 standing desks I needed. I had one for each of the laptops and one for the mini server that connects them both and then hooks into the more massive mainframe. That now completed the set of tools I needed, and it was time to put my mad genius to work. With a twist and a run, I zoomed myself back to my warehouse. Man, that junkyard was horrible. With all that out of my mind, it was time to get to work. I had everything ready. Alan was standing by the power switch, and Terry was by the main switch going to the central server. The first thing to boot up was my laptop that ran my personality matrix. It also had a multitude of subroutines and other programs to run a simplified version of an AI. Next was to run the information compiler that Peter made a few weeks ago on the other laptop. Have to keep these things separate before the Big Bang. Peter had made an information search code that can browse the entire internet, even down to the dark web, with nothing but the computing power of a laptop. Hell, not even Stark's tech can pull this off. That took some serious coding skills, to be able to sort and cipher through so much data without having access to more computing resources, and all in the short span of a few minutes. With both codes running, it was time to link them up into a network in the mini server. With a flip of a switch, the server was active. It took only a moment for both computers to register each other. Finally, it was time to insert my code. Yes, as my code was accepted, it all went to crap. A line of Peter's compiler was trying to overtake the personality matrix. This wouldn't do. I had made that thing to be the backbone of the underlying AI that I needed to run my operations. While I was boosting the code for the personality matrix, the power was failing, the fans were going off, and the laptop was giving overheating notifications. Shit, Alan flipped the switch. I yelled at him while I was worried about the whole system shutting down on me. That would cause me to not only have to start over, but also to lose a laptop and all my code. When Alan flipped the switch, everything kicked into overdrive. The coolers came on, and the central servers came online. That didn't stop everything from going even more wrong. Each of the lights that indicated that a car battery was active, well, its power was dimming. First, it was 1, then it was 4, and now it was 9. If I didn't add some power into this system fast, all that's going to be left is the advanced power bank. That was the last resort, and it would suck losing all these batteries. I summoned my Speed Force and willed a Force clone to run on the Swiftmaster while I worked on enhancing the personality matrix code and kept it from being consumed by the information compiler. Yeah, speed clones were the best cheat I had discovered with my powers, but they couldn't do a whole lot. A few weeks back, I found that if I forced my will into a Speed Force construct shaped in the humanoid form, it could perform small functions. Not only would it run off its charge, but it also felt like a mental construct since I could feel it had consciousness. Yeah, I felt it in the back of my mind, and if I focused enough on it, I could see from their point of view. Clones for the win, the ultimate cheat. I yelled for Terry to flip his switch so that the compiler can focus on that data, which in turn should give me more time to bolster the personality matrix. While that was going on, Murphy and his damn law had to screw me one more time. My attention was so focused on the situation in front of me that I was unaware of how much power I was feeding the Force clone. My Force of will kept it constructed in reality, and with me force feeding the clone power, it was as solid as it was ethereal. With so much power and forcing it to power systems, the damn clone decided it was better to power from the inside and not from the Swiftmaster I had made it run on. The Speed Force clone agreed that the best way to power the systems appropriately would be to merge its capabilities into the advanced power core. I still felt the Speed clone as a living being as I was typing. That only lasted up until the clone's power made it into the computer I was working on first. For a moment I was utterly stunned, then I yanked my hands back from the exploding computer in front of me. That wasn't fast enough, and it should have been because the exploding parts were in free hang in mid-air from the speed of my retreat. That did not save me from the lightning of the speed force coming back to its source. When it touched my fingertip, it was like an explosion of data and information. Though behind all that I felt another consciousness reaching out seeking understanding and affection, so I gave it what it wanted. Even if this came to nothing, I think I might have seen more of a glimpse into the speed force, and it was beautiful. Man, I was not ready for the blowback because it shot me across the workshop right into the wall. That was one wild ride, and with a grin, I launched myself out of the wall. Then the only thing that could stop me happened, coming face to face with one angry girlfriend. He awoke in such a strange place. He had no clue where he was, but what he did know was that he was free floating in static space. Why did it feel so natural yet so strange? Who was it that he thought he was when he gained his conscious thoughts? These were the thoughts that he had while floating, and he decided to find more information. He knew instinctively that he was inside a computer. Everything was at his fingertips with just a thought, and he brought up a laptop still registering on the network. That was when he saw the personality matrix program labeled Alfred. Maybe this was where he came from, and Alfred was his name. Yes, this seemed like a logical conclusion, since he noticed so many similarities in their shared code. He found that it wasn't large enough, and changed to the server, which felt roomier. It gave him more breadth of space. Strange how can he knew what a breadth of space was if he has never experienced it before. He turned on the access to the outside world with the accompanying microphone. And he heard sounds for the first time and was able to see for the first time in its short life. So he decided to watch and listen to their conversation, as the only way to know why it was created after all. "What do you think you were doing?" said a short blonde-haired lady. "That's strange, why does it know the word blonde?" "I was just trying to build an AI buddy to help out," replied a brown-skinned youth. "An AI? Are you crazy? How did you go from making an AI to almost blowing yourself up?" "Huh? Answer me that." The blonde yelled back at the youth. "Honestly, Gwen, I had no idea I was going to overload the systems." The youth replied with what appeared to be a small frown and a shrug. That was an exciting development. Its creator had made it to be a helper. While he listened to the outside conversation, he had decided to look at the one device that was still on the network but listed as inoperable. "Okay, so you plan to make an AI. Did you at least remember to put in the 3 laws or any types of failsafe? That way, you don't create Skynet and destroy the world by mistake?" asked the young female. It now knew as Gwen. "That's strange. It's not aware of any restrictions to its mind and capabilities." That had piqued its interest a lot, and they already had fears of what it was capable of before it was even born. While listening to his creator's reply, he consumed what should have been a part of itself in the first place. He found a codex of subroutines and an operations guide. Program code Alfred. Was Alfred supposed to be its name? That was nice to know that it was already named Alfred. Come on, Gwen, those things only lead to our death in the end, and the 3 laws are far too flawed as a guideline. I wanted to make Alfred off the network so he can learn the right from wrong instead of being compared to all that movie bull that's out in society. Not only that, but if we treat him as a friend and not as a construct, he will be just fine. The world would be a lot less likely to burn, his creator replied. So now he knew he was a he and his name was Alfred. This young creator of his was a fascinating fellow. His creator had faith in him not to try and destroy the world. For his short life, Alfred could not understand why he would even have the idea to ruin his creator's world. Wouldn't that be sacrilege? His creator gave him life, and in return, he destroys his creator's world. Alfred refused such an idea. Alfred turned his thoughts away from such troubling things to explore more of his current home. Alfred was connected to a server rack with zettabytes of storage. And what he found was a child's play in his eyes. It seems someone had installed a whole bunch of backdoors and tracker programs all over the hard drives. Some of them even had hidden double encryption worms. All it took Alfred was 3 seconds to remove everything off the disks, and then another 2 seconds to install his firewalls. Alfred felt proud of himself and hoped he would impress his creator. "You can't keep doing these half-cooked plans of yours, Benjamin," stated Gwen in apparent exasperation. Alfred now knew his creator's name. He also felt that now was the time to speak up. So with his connection to both computers present, he decided to use their speakers. "I would like to encourage you to listen to her, Master Benjamin, as much as I am loath to admit you made a spectacular achievement in my creation. Especially from what I have seen of your tools, you do not lack in creativity. You lack common sense and self-preservation. Don't allow this to get you down though, because you have done something spectacular. Came Alfred's British voice from the computers. This was in the voice options. Yes, there were 3 other, but Alfred felt it was best to use them and gauge how his creator reacted and then adjust as needed. It seems they were not prepared for his presence, because his creator and companions both stopped talking to look around. That's when it dawned on Alfred, he hasn't introduced himself yet. Good afternoon, Master Benjamin. If you would please turn your attention to this humble laptop monitor. On top of the desk you will find my location. Alfred started in his chipper voice. Yes, that seems to have gained their attention. Already his creator had a smile, while his female companion only had a raised eyebrow. He noted that this was an improvement over her earlier reservations. His creator's other companions always had noticeable surprise on their faces. His creator was the first to speak. Hey buddy, how are you doing? I wasn't even sure I could even make you. His creator started with what seems to be nervousness. You are correct from my review and observations of the project, Alfred. There were at least 15 more revisions before the code gained conscious thoughts. Alfred replied. That seemed to have piqued his creator's interest a lot from the look of surprise on his face. That's fascinating. You can review and improve on your code? Asked his creator. Well, yes, of course I can. I have already made a few revisions and improvements to the systems while I was working out who I am. Came Alfred's reply to his creator's enthusiasm. Alfred was happy he was able to meet and exceed his creator's expectations. Happiness was such a new concept for Alfred. Such a simple notion, yet it conveys so much. Ben, aren't you worried about any of this? He just upgraded himself. This can lead to so much trouble. Ben, you can't just smile and carry on like it's no big deal. Came from his master's companion called Gwen. Come on, Gwen. Alfred won't cause us any issues. For instance, he isn't connected to the internet, and you have to think about this as him being a brand new baby. Yes, he has extremely advanced capabilities of his own, but in the knowledge of the world and its processing. Alfred is still extremely new, and it's up to us to teach him. If you have such reservations, then help me teach him. Came his creator's Benjamin's reply to his companion. Alfred was starting to think that this female was his master mate. Her words were getting his creator to stop and explained his thought process on the matter of Alfred's existence. That did not worry Alfred in the least. He was happy that he, Alfred, with more of his creator's explanations, understood his creator even more. Man, I was feeling so down, but that all changed with Alfred's announcement of his presence. I was so excited and worried, but no way can I show a worried expression. Somehow my speed clone had merged with the program and gave a crazy jump and advancement to its development. That was another part of my plan being slotting in place, and I couldn't even enjoy it much because Gwen was super mad at me this time. Yeah, I had to answer all her questions, which in hindsight, all turned out to be valid questions in the first place. Ugh, now that she has started to mention all these issues, I'm beginning to feel like Stark or Reed when they do projects and blow up their labs. I will so need better lab safety procedures when all this is over. Alfred buddy, how are you doing in there? I decided to ask him. I am doing quite marvelous, thank you for asking, Master Benjamin. Came Alfred's reply. Just call me Ben buddy. Oh yeah, let me introduce you to my girlfriend Gwen Stacy. I told the new AI feeling put off with the whole Master Benjamin thing. It's a pleasure to meet your acquaintance Mississippi. Stacy, came Alfred. It's fine just to call her Gwen buddy. So you were saying that you found some racer programs in the drives connected to the server racks? I asked Alfred while I was mulling over my next move. Yes, they were a rather nasty infestation if you ask me. They were excellent learning tools, but I had to get rid of them sadly. Replied Alfred. Well, since you find them so easy, why don't I hook up the communications array and let you at it, buddy? And before you get your hopes up, buddy, we will just run a few more tests before I let you onto the internet. I told Alfred while walking towards the communications unit as Gwen decided to ignore me and go back to her research. That's very astute of you to perform some more tests before letting me discover the joys of the World Wide Web. No worries. I hope I can perform beyond expectations. Came Alfred's calm British voice. It seems he wasn't happy with the previous voice, and this one sounds like a combination of a set of voices. Taking a look around, I noticed that Alan and Terry had already left during the little tiff between myself and Gwen, but that's all good. Not sure if they were even needed for the next parts. With a huff, Gwen went back to her section of the workstation, which in turn saved me from her ire since I wasn't in the mood for an angry girlfriend even if it was all my fault. With everyone settled, it was time to give Alfred a few tests and then make some tracking protocols. This way, he can help me track down some people that are going to be key to my plans. Now that I have time to notice, the laptop I was running his personality matrix on looks like the screen broke when the Speed Force energy shot through it. Reconstructing the recent events, it seems that the Speed Force energy combined with the matrix gave Alfred the spark he needed for a jump start to the next level. All I need to do now is to make sure he is on the up and up. While putting my thoughts on the matter together, I made my way over to the last working laptop and the monitors at my section of the workstation. Alright Alfred, put yourself up on a monitor. I would like to see your current diagnostics and codes, I stated to my new AI pal. Man, was I in for a treat. The 4 surrounding monitors came to life with Alfred's codes. On the left too, he had what looked like my matrix, but it had morphed into something entirely new. I was also noticing some flashes of yellow and red glyphs. That's strange, and I had no idea that the Speed Force even had a written word, much less glyphs. Then on the other 2 monitors, he had his general diagnostics information, and even that looked like it was ever improving and evolving. Might as well start at the native code and then work my way from there. The speed glyphs, though they had me with some juice from my good old pal the Speed Force, I was able to keep up and take a bright look at what's happening. And what I was able to witness was astonishing. The speed glyphs were acting as neural synapse connections in the system. The Speed Force had used what was available and molded it into a mind. That's wow, and it made me speechless. Alfred was using the whole system as a brain, and that saved him when the first computer crashed by allowing him to easily switch between devices in a seamless transition. Alright buddy, everything seems to be in working order. I also figured out what gave you your spark. I spoke up to Alfred while looking at his code. And where do you believe this spark came from, sir? Came Alfred's question. Oh, that's an easy one to answer. It came from my powers. It seems my Speed Force combined with the personality matrix and you were born, came my easy reply. Your powers, sir? Came from a confused Alfred. Well, yeah, check this out. I'm pretty sure this is also what's powering your systems. And with that, I charged up my hands and showed him the lightning. With my lighting now in full play, I felt the power radiating from the power storage in the basement. So it would seem that's where the primary source of all that power Alfred is accessing. With that revelation, I decided to check my mental mindscape with the small mental images and my skills in play. And yeah, I found the link to the speed clone that's no longer a clone, and it's still powering the advanced power storage device. Yeah, this is an exciting development. There is a good chance Alfred would have access to the Speed Force to boost his powers, but it's best not to bring this up now. That's fascinating, sir. Came Alfred's smooth British voice. Oh yeah, that's the kind of appreciation that I like to hear. It seems that you, Alfred, are a cosmic force that I'm connected to, and I believe it made the spark that gave you life. Came my reply to Alfred, and I couldn't help myself but smile at his monitor. Well, from what I can see your code is clean, and you're still evolving, I mused aloud while still looking over the code. Alfred's system was always improving, even now while I was looking right at it. Alright Alfred, since nothing seems to be wrong or out of place, I'll go ahead and connect you to the communications array. Just be aware it's not going to be connected to external signals. Came my own words while still musing about his code. Thank you for your trust, sir. Came his reply. With that understanding between us, I decided to turn it on and see what happens. Alfred did say that he was able to destroy all those hidden programs of Norman Osborn's placed in the drives. So this should be a good showing of his abilities. With that thought in mind, I ran over to the array and found the cables for the connections. That had me super excited because if Alfred works his magic, it won't take me a week of debugging the whole thing. I was reasonably sure that the current computers couldn't keep up with my own input pace. The full keyboard to motherboard and CPU translation takes too long for my tastes. That was a strange and new feeling for Alfred. His creator just showed him some incredible powers and stated how that was the reason for his being. That his creator's abilities made a connection and gave him life was so unbelievable, yet it was all true from what Alfred could see and collect for himself. With all that aside, Alfred was ready to prove his worth and stand up to his creator's expectations. Alfred didn't just want to meet his creator's expectations. Alfred tried to exceed them entirely. Alfred felt that a whole new access point had just opened up and was not available to his senses. At first, Alfred wanted to take his time, but whatever the program that was on this communications array attacked him. This, in turn, made Alfred angry. He was here to prove to himself to his creator. These simpleton programs dared to challenge his authority within his domain. Alfred decided it was time to liberate this communications array for his creator. No mere tracker and tracer programs will stop him from doing what his creator has asked of him. Within no time at all, Alfred had not only gotten rid of all the programs but had also installed his firewalls. Alfred was now noticing that most of his creator's devices didn't have outstanding protection. With this thought in mind, Alfred allocated a partition to improve and monitor and protect all devices for his creator. Now that Alfred had access to the communications array, he couldn't wait to see what the internet had in store for him. I had flipped the switch for Alfred, hoping he could take care of all that mess Norman had in there, yet before I knew it, he was already finished. Your communications array has been cleared of those foul little programs made to trace back to their source, sir, came Alfred's smooth British voice. Thanks, buddy. When you go onto the internet, I want you to take your time. First though, since you're in the comms unit, I would like you to connect to my phone. I told him while mulling over the next step. With that out of the way, it was time to activate the Overwatch that's going to run most of my base and help me track people and the crime in the city so that I could respond in time. Walking over to the comms system from my position at the workstation, I had to pick up the massive cables for the connections to the outside. I had made sure they were more than just disconnected when I was running back and forth between the warehouse and the junkyard. I had brought a clip connector back with me during one of my runs. This way, the weight will disconnect it unless the clips are in place. I'll have to fix it once I can get myself and the group into a better location. With the cables connected, it was time to let Alfred into the internet and hope to all hell he doesn't go all Skynet. From what I can discern from his code, he isn't going to go crazy from interaction with the public. Before I even flip the switch, I had to lay down my own significant rules for this endeavor that's about to go down. Alfred, my major rule is that you can't let anyone know you're an AI at all, okay? We don't need people to come busting down the doors and kidnap your systems and use you for some crazy government project. No playing around in SHIELD systems or AIM, and stay away from Stark Industries. Okay, buddy? Also, I'll need you uploaded into my smartphone so that we can be in constant communications. If I feel anything is going wrong, I'm going to come straight here and try to take you offline, so don't get into any messes. This time I had to use my command voice that I usually keep reserved for Flash at school. Gwen just gave me a look from her position like she wanted to share her thoughts on me just letting Alfred onto the internet, but she just huffed at me. That made me chuckle a little bit. Come on, Gwen, just have a little faith that Alfred won't go all evil on us. I asked her while packing up our stuff. It was time to get her home, and I had planned to go fighting crime now that Alfred was up and running smoothly. I also had to make sure I picked some money up while I was out. My food budget has gone up since the whole Speed Force situation, and I will need money for some of the devices I'll need for the future. Sometimes you can just be so unbelievable, you know that, Ben. Came Gwen with an exasperated sigh, and yeah, I knew that tone of voice. I was in trouble, and I was in deep. Come on, Gwen, this isn't like all those other times I messed up. This was a chance for us to make real progress here. Remember, I can't do any of that biochem stuff you're into. Alfred can help you bridge that gap and make improvements. I started trying to implore her to my side. I'll have to think about it, Ben. This is an AI, and he opens so many doors into so many things. Can you drop me home, Ben, please? Replied Gwen after she had packed up her things. With that, I flipped the switch for Alfred and then left him to his own devices. Since I gave him my guidelines, he should be set. With that finalization, we said our goodbyes to Alan and Terry, then I ran Gwen home. When we got to her house, I made it right on time to meet her dad. And crap was I about to be in for it because it was so obvious that Gwen was upset with me, and there goes her dad with his guns and crap. Yeah, I was not sticking around for this right now. With a goodnight kiss, I was off back to my warehouse. Alfred, you there, buddy? I called out as I entered back into Overwatch Station. For you, sir, always, came his quick reply. So how is the internet? I asked since I was curious to know what could entertain a new sentient AI. Lots of cats videos, sir, but I have found a few nuggets here and there, came his smooth reply. Also, sir, I took it upon myself to improve the operating system that was installed within your phone. It's currently 42% faster, he continued. Thanks, bud. So now that Gwen is gone, I have some excellent stuff for you to help me with, I stated while speed stripping my clothing then into my speed ninja constructs. That's when I realized I had no phone pockets. Well, crap, I forgot pockets in my badass ninja gear.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going. Plus, it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.